People are so fucking scared in our industry right now. Sales have collapsed more than 70% year over year.
There's a collapse.
The options are quite limited, to be honest. So we also thought about what do we do? What is our emergency exit plan, right? If things collapse.
The consumer personal computer industry is collapsing at the hands of AI data centers. Scarcity has become the norm. Consumer prices have skyrocketed as a result of memory prices climbing 5 to 9 times since October, with storage prices being dragged in tow and US bans on Chinese companies reducing competition. But the endless demand is caused by one thing.
The demand for AI compute is just continuing to increase.
It is so unprecedented how much compute is being consumed right now.
It's always about compute.
People talk about how much energy it takes to train an AI model, but it also takes a lot of energy to train a human. It takes like 20 years of life. Probably AI has already caught up on an energy efficiency basis measured that way.
We need to increase the world's compute capacity another 100 times over the next few years.
and so I think the fact that everything is scarce is fantastic for us.
We've heard from plenty of billionaire executives of trillion-dollar companies over the past year, like about how you just need some small capital.
But you do need to have, $1 billion. You need to have some reasonable fund.
And while we've heard them talk and talk and talk, we haven't heard much from everyone else that the greedy, feckless data center expansion affects. Normal people, and especially those working for consumer-first companies who have absolutely no control over the price of memory, the availability of CPUs and GPUs, or the ability of normal people to own computers. In a sense, AI took your job.
Yeah.
But not because AI has actually done your job.
No, it took it because it's basically taking consumer computers as an appliance.
For us, it was always up and down, something between 50,000 to almost like 100,000 units per month. And then you can see from November, December, January, you can see a kind of steady decline. Yeah, so there's another one that I found interesting, which is the thermal GRIZZLY contact and sealing frame for AM5, like 40,000 revenue per month. This is where it would be normal at. This is like the normal base level. Going down to below 10,000 per month for this item is the lowest we ever had.
We have a chart to show the audience. Our January decline from December for us and the market is around 15%, and continuously on a 4-month decline into April, 40% for the market.
Last time we talked in Taiwan, you were talking about how you guys were trying to get a warehouse in the US.
Yeah. And then try to avoid tariffs, so we'll bring tons of stock in.
Yeah.
And then that's what we did. And then memory happens.
Right.
And then now I'm sitting with a lot of inventories that all this was supposed to digest last year. Like everyone had POs, and then they cancel everything. Everybody canceled.
Are you talking about like retailers or distributors?
Everything, everyone.
Yeah, okay.
Like the essentially like, it's like some product was selling like 4,000 or 5,000 units a month. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 500, 600.
Wow, okay.
It's like, it's like
1/10.
1/10.
But these numbers don't just show what's happening to companies selling computer parts to consumers. They show a shift that's happening to at-home access to powerful, independent consumer computing as a whole. And now, more than ever, the mask is off for the mega corporations that control the demand drivers, like GPUs and memory, as they build the infrastructure to rent it back to you.
We're in the once-in-a-generation infrastructure build-up. There's no question my ambition has changed.
The world moved away from those centralized computing environments towards everybody just using laptops. This is today's computing environment.
Yesterday's computing was largely about personal computing. In the future, it's going to be about personal AI, like PCs, just like us humans using PCs today. In the future, you'll have an agent using PC.
We're also going to see personal AI. Instead of personal computers, we want personal AI.
And we're not the only ones interpreting this as if the AI companies have ambitions of leveraging rising prices to convert the possibility of computer ownership into rentership. just as we've seen with home ownership, as if NVIDIA, OpenAI, Oracle, Meta, and Google are digital lords of a feudalistic kingdom, accepting perpetual rent for a spot on their cloud, as ownership is priced out of possibility. Many of our contacts in the industry catering to consumers buying and owning highly personalized PCs also think they see this trajectory.
They're not trying to help us. I think for them it would be even great if none of us exists, so they can just do whatever they want.
I think it will eventually, component business is going to shrink even more. Sustainable business is going to shrink as well, because a lot of this will become AI-based, cloud-based kind of a program, so then people don't need to have a system at home anymore. They can just have a handheld that
basically
can...
a terminal.
Yeah, a terminal to play.
We've definitely seen an increasing trend in rental programs or cloud compute services, right? And so as much as we'd love for you to buy and own, we do recognize that the individual's financial situation is ultimately going to be the determining factor. If they need access to powerful compute and they can't afford to go out and build a PC, sure, they might do a rental program
GeForce Now or whatever.
GeForce Now, right?
The consumer PC industry, as we've known it our entire lives, that's gone. Like, it's gone. We're so far gone that the consumers aren't buying the stuff anymore. And that means that the market, you know, in its kind of extremely mature sense, is done.
We brought you this investigation with our store on store.gamersnexus.net. During this trip, our car got robbed in San Francisco, and we had to replace a lot of items. So we're running a discount code so that you can benefit from our misfortune. The PUC Gamers Nexus code for 10% off is back. Because puck us, right? Use this code for anything on the store, like our brand new wireframe V2 mouse mats, which have intricate detail all the way down to the keyboard switch construction. The wireframe V2 mouse mats represent a cyberpunk dystopian city, like San Francisco, where all our shit was stolen. You can also grab one of our thermal conductivity text, copper-plated stainless steel mule mugs, but don't leave it in your car in San Francisco, because the tweakers will steal it and sell the copper. Or consider one of our GPU VRAM Gold Halo pint glasses that we just restocked after months of people asking us for them. These have a thick gold halo, a GPU print and BGA pattern for VRAM, and are made of glass, like the window that was smashed on our rental car in San Francisco. Or consider grabbing one of our e-waste inductor dice kits, featuring 7 sharp-edge resin dice for your tabletop games, plus a roll tray, wooden box, and playing card. Just don't roll a natural one like we did in San Francisco. With this code, you can get 10% off anything on our store to support our investigations. Thanks for your support. Now, back to the program. This was our most exciting adventure yet. Late last year, we flew out to China to learn more about the margin structure of computer hardware at the same time as running our black market GPU investigation. We flew back to North Carolina, then flew to California because we overshot it by accident, met with Rob Teller of HYTE to talk about his unreleased case, flew back to North Carolina, where informed Rob Teller had suddenly lost his job due to the RAM crisis killing sales, flew back to California again, met with Rob Teller, formerly of HYTE, to talk about the industry, got stuck behind a fully autonomous self-driving Waymo on a road with enough room for only one car as the robotic car tried to force us to reverse up a narrow street in what feels like some sort of just cruel commentary on reality of AI destroying everything. I made room for it. It could have passed me. Park right there. Park, you fuck. I'll call you back. Oh. What the fuck? This is why RAM prices are thousands of dollars. There's a car behind.
Oh my goodness.
Fuck this, how is this legal? Met with the freshly unemployed Rob Teller and helped him vacuum a little bit.
Makes vacuuming fun. Look at this shit.
Oh my god. Packed our bags, went to the airport to fly to San Francisco, got delayed, and in order to not be late to our next 2 meetings, skipped dropping off our bags at the hotel and went straight to a meeting with CORSAIR, foreshadowing. CORSAIR's next, so last time we were here was 1 year ago for Tariffs. Same spot, different CEO. This is when we discovered that San Francisco loves AI so much that it has billboards for questionable startups every 15 feet. In about a 1 mile span, there were 6 billboards for AI.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them just say the word super intelligence.
Yeah.
And they literally
Which
don't...
is better than actual intelligence.
Right, yes.
There's, you know, intelligence, actual intelligence, super intelligence.
Right.
I honestly have no idea.
Where do you fall on that scale?
I am not even on the scale. I just go on vibes. It's like vibe coding, but as an
Vibe
existence.
intelligence.
Vibe intelligence
Yes.
is my thing.
Vibe intelligence.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do.
Then we grabbed a drink nearby, and according to police, sometime within 5 minutes of us arriving to get our drinks, the rental car was broken into and half our shit was stolen. The thieves got our passports, which was unfortunate because we had to fly to Taiwan in 12 hours to meet with GSKILL for this story. This devolved into a whole separate other story involving exploring a thieves market in San Francisco with 2 armed bodyguards to try and find our stolen shit, but we'll save that for another time. For this story, we spoke to a lot of people. We collected information over 8 months as we started to see the trend last year, beginning in Shenzhen and eventually ending in California. We met with around 9 different entities for this one, ranging from freight forwarding companies to the near billion-dollar publicly traded CORSAIR. Some are more optimistic and trying to find the positives.
Are you able to find positives you want to highlight despite kind of the negatives?
We can now squeeze in projects that we wanted to tackle already a bit longer, which means, what I also said in between, I am very excited towards 27, very excited. And looking at the roadmap, there will be things in there that I would like to see what you say about it and everybody say about that.
Right.
So that's maybe one positive thing that you can see.
Others don't share the positivity.
I don't see, at least personally, I don't see anything positive from it.
Okay.
I wish I could
That's
name
fine.
one. I can
That's
name one.
fine.
Maybe there's something I don't see. Maybe the viewers can tell us whatever.
I'm just
but
happy
I
to
don't
hear
see
it from someone who's not me.
We met with a lot of people for this trip who shared unrivaled access to information, including revenue figures. In order of interview appearances, the experts we met with include Roman Hartun, aka Der Bauer, the CEO of Thermal GRIZZLY. I've known Roman for at least 10 years now. Wei Yang, General Manager of Cooler Master USA. Wei is one of the most open people we work with and isn't brainwashed by the industry, keeping a consumer viewpoint at all times. I've known Wei for at least 12 years now. Mark Yu and Wei Day of GSKILL, a memory module manufacturer that focuses on serving the DIY PC market and gaming markets. Although memory prices are up, uniquely, this doesn't necessarily mean good things for companies selling sticks of RAM. Rob Teller, who at this point needs no introduction. Rob is one of the 2 co-founders of HYTE and was recently laid off from his product director role. Jeff Chun, the other co-founder, alongside staff Ish Patel and Kin Perez of HYTE. Alex Chen, a freight forwarder working for Strait Forwarding Inc. Alex joined us to talk about tariffs last year and brings knowledge of impacts to global shipping and its costs. Kevin Xian of IBUYPOWER. Kevin is a purchaser and deals with buying RAM, storage, and other components in bulk. George Makris of CORSAIR, whom I've also known for over a decade. George joined CORSAIR as a memory testing technician in the early 2000s and has been with the company through thick and thin. And Aaron Licht of Be Quiet, CEO. He was kind enough to fly out from Germany to visit us, especially helpful because we could go there without the passports. That was a problem. With the plan laid out, it helped to better understand what is actually going on. All the companies we've come to know over decades, unless they're building data centers, are being dragged along for the ride while the huge companies, their former partners, have converted to a post-consumer business model that sells primarily to each other, transacting millions of GPUs and memory chips between a handful of entities that are increasingly in bed with government. Consumers are no longer customers. They're competition, left out of the inner bubble. Consumer ownership of powerful home computing is ending. As a result, the consumer industry is in free fall as the experts and engineers we've introduced to the audience for nearly 2 decades now are losing their jobs as their sales collapse. Prices for everything are going up. While NVIDIA, AMD, and the memory makers rake in the money, companies that make consumer products with memory in them are also increasing prices. Major OEMs, which are close partners to NVIDIA, like HP, Dell, and Lenovo, raised prices on personal computers due to the high cost of memory. Microsoft followed suit by raising the price of its top Surface laptop by $500. Sony raised prices for the PlayStation. Nintendo increased the Switch 2 price to $500 in the US due to, quote, changes in market conditions, end quote. Microsoft said memory prices will impact the next Xbox. Even Raspberry Pi increased prices for its little computers, calling the memory crunch, quote, painful, end quote. The situation is more dire in the desktop PC industry, with companies that don't make products containing memory, like case, motherboard, cooling, fan, and power supply companies, racing to the bottom to try and compensate for the drop in sales by fighting each other over scraps of market share. Companies around the world are beginning to address the issues publicly. US-based gaming company CORSAIR said the global semiconductor shortage is threatening the PC hardware market. In an SEC filing, CORSAIR said the high cost of memory modules, quote, act as a barrier to entry for the budget segment of the self-built PC market, end quote, and may negatively affect the company's finances. Fractal Design from Fractal Gaming Group, a public company based in Sweden that makes cases, desktop components, and peripherals, best known for its Torrent and Fractal North cases, said memory shortages are impacting the DIY PC market and consumer products, while noting that manufacturers are prioritizing AI rather than consumers. Fractal declined to join us for this video. Taiwan requires public companies to submit operating revenue every month. Based on public filings that Gamers Nexus dug up, the PC component company Antec, which declined to speak with us despite a good relationship spanning years now, has seen its revenue drop by 40% through March compared to last year. Antec's revenue in March 2026 was down 65% compared to March 2025. Antec cited being public as its reason to stay off camera. Many companies have diversified with data center products. Asus expanded its AI server business while shifting its revenue mix from consumer products to server. In its 2025 fourth quarter report, Asus said it expects its AI server business to grow 4 to 5 times year over year, while its component business will be flat. InWin has shifted from wacky case designs and PC DIY education-focused flat-packed PCs to focusing instead on its new server factory in Taiwan in a bid to stay afloat. Personal computing is becoming unaffordable for normal, actual people, and we're not the only ones with this opinion. Aside from, obviously, the normal, actual people who already know it's too expensive, the analyst firm Gartner expects PC shipments to fall 10.4% in 2026 year over year, and Gartner said the, quote, sub $500 entry-level PC segment, end quote, will disappear by 2028. At that floor, it's already gone, as our audience knows well. Our first meeting is with Roman Hartun, aka Der Bauer, of YouTube and overclocking fame. Roman is also the CEO of Thermal GRIZZLY, a manufacturer of thermal paste, liquid metal, thermal pads, the WireView 12-volt high power solution, and plenty more. Roman gets highly transparent with his sales performance of a few key products for Thermal GRIZZLY in this one. Historically, this amount of access would be exceedingly rare. It still is, although we did get a lot more of it for this series. Thermal GRIZZLY is headquartered near Berlin, Germany, and has its own factory there, but also still uses contract factories in China for some of its other products. This makes Thermal GRIZZLY unique. Most notably though, thermal paste as a category is on the cheaper side of computer products out of all the companies we're talking to today. So if even thermal paste is down, then that's eye-opening.
Yeah, I would say thermal paste, as I said, is quite interesting because it's a bit different to the other items, because it can work in both ways. As a customer buys a new PC, he needs thermal paste. But on the other hand, sometimes we had, over the years, situations where people would still buy thermal paste even if the industry was struggling, because then, you still have people playing around with PCs, and then you're maybe thinking of, hey, instead of buying a new PC, I will refurbish something, I will still need paste. So that's how it was for us often in the past, that even if the industry was down, then we were most of the time still doing quite well. But this time it's kind of different, because I think it's down by so much that even this refurbishing aspect does not really help anymore. So I prepared some slides as well, so we can take a look at some of our, I would say, high sellers, which used to be Cryonaut, 1 gram, even though we already launched Duranaut afterwards. So I already prepared that. But for us, the stable base we always had as a company was Cryonaut 1 gram. It was always a high seller for us. And it's the first time in like 10 years that this changed.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
The first slide I prepared is Cryonaut 1 gram. We're looking at the quantities per month. So as I said, we always had this as a stable base of our company, like always good sales. For example, October 25, we sold about 86,000 units in 1 month. For us, it was always up and down, something between 50,000 to almost like 100,000 units per month. That's where we usually acted in. And then you can see from November, December, January, you can see a kind of steady decline. We have small spike in February 26. That is because some of our partners, they sometimes buy larger quantities, let's say 2-3 times per year, and then ship it overseas with like sea freight. So we had this case in February. But overall, it's a quite solid decline. And
when's the last time you saw numbers like you're seeing in, March and May, I guess?
Yeah, so March and May 26, I checked it. The last time we had sales this low was in 2021, 1 month.
Okay.
So it's the worst in 5 years.
Tell me if you think this affected you at all, but that would have been the same window, 2021, where there were GPU shortages because of crypto mining.
Yeah, I think so as well. At that time, it was also like global shipping problems due to COVID and all that. So I also pulled the Duranout numbers. We don't have Duranout 1 gram, the smallest is 2 gram, but you can also see a decline here.
Right.
So it was always between 7,000 to 10,000 units per month most of the time. November 25 was still strong, but then you can see it's a quite steady decline over the months. Yeah, so there's another one that I found interesting, which is the Thermal Grizzly contact and sealing frame for AM5. It's this small metal frame that you can mount on a AM5 CPU to like protect it from thermal pastes, spills, and all these kind of things. And this time it's revenue numbers instead of the quantities being sold. But this is kind of interesting in regard that from our perspective, most of the people would buy this type of frame whenever they would get a new PC. So when they buy a new CPU, they would also buy this type of item.
Right.
Whereas, as I said, a thermal paste can be anything. A thermal paste can be for a new PC or for refurbishing. December 25 was still quite strong, but it's kind of expected with like Christmas time is always pretty high in general in our business. Like November and December are usually good months.
Right.
But like the decline is pretty insane.
Yeah. So I mean, normally you would see a decline in January versus December, I would guess. Is this more than typical?
Yeah, I mean, you would stay like the January numbers you're seeing there, like 40,000 revenue per month. This is where it would be normal at. This is like the normal base level. Going down to below 10,000 per month for this item is the lowest we ever had.
At what point does the individual sort of product viability come into question? You know, like once you start dropping below 10K per month for like a ceiling frame, is this one that you guys make in-house in Germany?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's also for this item, it's not like we wouldn't do it anymore. The thing is, right now I have about 14,000 units in stock, and I'm selling 500 per month right now.
Shit, yeah.
So
you like never get rid of them, right, at that rate.
We hope that whenever new AMD CPUs come out, that we just can get a bit higher sales numbers to at least be able to sell them. That would be great.
I guess maybe this is a more unique advantage of Thermal Grizzly is that the items you sell generally are pretty small.
Yeah, it makes it very easy for us, especially cases. I can tell you that we earn the same on the contact sealing frame, like $7, for example,
right,
as other brands earn on a case. So I rather ship this small piece than the entire PC, right?
What do you think the main cause or causes of this are?
I think it's in general just a price hike. I was afraid already about this in November. So internally at GRIZZLY, we had the first meetings about this in November and December because I saw this coming as well. With the high memory prices, I told everyone here that we have to immediately start cost-saving measures. Otherwise, we will start getting in trouble. And because I saw, memory kits quadruple in price. And from my own perspective, I would just simply not buy that. And because most of the people here are also gamers, and they all know how it works. They're all like, I'm not buying anything next year.
Right.
Which is this year, and now they're saying the same thing again for next year, which is not great.
Yeah.
So what we did is just try to be as efficient as possible and save as much money as possible. That only works until a certain degree, obviously, right? So it's a struggle for us as well. So like every single month, it's not easy, and we obviously hope that things will become easier at some point. But I think this is only possible if like memory and SSD prices are going down, or if some sort of new technology comes that is interesting to motivate people to buy. So that could be new CPUs or GPUs, and we both know that nothing of this is around the corner. So
yeah,
I think most of our industry is an accessory business. Like no matter who you're looking at, even Asus or MSI, they're also in the end an accessory business, because neither of them is making chipsets or GPUs or anything. They don't make memory. They just buy components and supply a market that's existing. And aside from Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA, I think everybody is getting in trouble. Some more, some less, but yeah, it's an accessory business. Like most of the companies you probably talk to, HYTE, Cooler Master, yeah, we're all in the same boat, unfortunately.
Yeah. What do you think about NVIDIA's announcement that it's going to separate out or change the gaming reporting to merge it into its edge computing reporting? Did you see that news?
Yeah, I also saw that. I think it just is kind of in line with NVIDIA's vision, I would call it. That I mean, right now they're in a super convenient position. So everybody is buying as much as possible from them, and they basically don't have to do anything, right? They could probably fire their entire marketing department and not do anything, and it would still be the same.
Right.
Because they don't have to advertise their own products. It's a super convenient position, but that will not last forever. It's always how it is. We obviously don't know what the future brings, especially with the entire AI thing. But at some point, demand will not necessarily decrease, but change. Some companies might not exist anymore. Some companies might switch to different chips. And we will then see what happens. I think right now or for the next year, we'll see how NVIDIA is doing. But
yeah.
It's just sad. It's just sad that they're forgetting where they're coming from. If you're talking to them, they're obviously claiming that they're not forgetting it, but they're trying really hard not to help us, right? It's like they're not trying to help us. I think for them it would be even great if none of us exists, so they can just do whatever they want without getting criticism.
Given the decline in sales and the challenges, you mentioned starting to make some cost reductions last year, but generally, what are your options?
The options are quite limited, to be honest. So we also thought about what do we do? What is our emergency exit plan, right? If things collapse, like what do we do? The problem is that we have rather high running costs because of everything that we have, right? We have so many machines, and they're also creating a lot of running costs. So even if you're thinking about it, like let's say you would hypothetically think about reducing the staff by 50%. That doesn't even help. It's a thing that none of the people here are useless. All of them are super important, super skilled.
Right.
And anyone that's leaving is a loss for the company, which means we can just produce less. So the options we have are very limited. We can only save costs to a certain degree, which we already did. Like cutting marketing costs, for example, is one thing. This year is the first time we were at Computex. We wanted to cancel our booth, but we already had paid for 90%. Like in retrospective, should not have done it probably, but here we are.
Well, I mean, you normally make those arrangements pretty early, right? So
we decided this like almost a year ago, right?
Yeah, right.
There's not that much we can do. So what we're doing is we're pushing as hard as we can to just make as many interesting new products we can do. So we're just making new things that we hope are interesting enough and perform well enough that it's worth people buying them. So we can somehow just compensate the loss. I don't think it's realistic to go on the same level as before, but at least trying to get somewhat of a stable base. Yeah. We have a new pace coming for Computex, but that's just we did it because we can do it, but it won't really help us. Like introducing a 5th or 6th pace is not helping you, right? But what we can do is just going wider, having products we didn't do in the past. Like luckily the WireView is helping us a lot right now. It's a great running product. And we're expanding into the water cooling market a lot, right? So that's helping us. And we're actually forced to do a lot of innovation, which is great, I think. We've always been doing that, but now, especially this year, is probably our most innovative year we ever had. Like we're coming out with a lot of very, very creative products, hoping that this is helping us. It's the only thing we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see a path to recovery?
I hope so. At least from my company perspective, I can say that if everything works out, which I'm hoping it will, end of next year will be easier for us because we had this expansion phase, buying a lot of machinery and stuff, and some of them are financed, and then all of this ends for us end of next year. So if we make it to that level, then things will, at least for us as a company, be much more relaxed because we're able to cut our costs further. In terms of recovering as the industry, I would say this is very difficult. Like, I would say one thing people were hoping for is the new GTA, right? But we know that they also try everything to focus this on consoles instead of PC gamers, and I'm not sure what this will mean. And as long as there is nothing new interesting, like new games that require higher computing power, better hardware, new GPUs, then this will be difficult. This will be difficult.
Yeah.
There are some interesting games, not super interesting from my personal perspective, but they're also not that demanding. You can play them with whatever exists. So even if new hardware comes out, you're probably not forced to upgrade.
Right. You're uniquely positioned in that you guys do have the factory in Germany. Does that give you any key advantages right now? You know, like
it gives us. There is this one interesting aspect maybe as well is the entire gallium indium aspect with liquid metal. So liquid metal also underwent drastic changes over the years. 7-8 years ago, we bought raw material of gallium for about $300 to $400 per kilogram. If I want to buy this now in Germany, I will pay something between 2,500 to 3,000 per kilogram. So it's almost times 10.
Yeah.
If you want to buy this from, let's say, China, you can't because there's like export blocks, export regulations. So you can't buy this anymore. Luckily, we have a good stock of liquid metal, and we can make this in-house, right? We're making this in-house, the conduct node extreme.
Right.
And for the last 2 years, it was a super high advantage for us being able to make this here, still ship this happily, you know, EU, US, while you can't buy it from China, which is where most other people were getting the liquid metal from. So that's also why liquid metal availability on like Amazon, on other places, is often very bad for other suppliers, but we can just supply it all the time because we can manufacture it here and ship it. So that was one of the best gambles that we did.
Material costs in general. So gallium, you gave that example. Have other material costs gone up?
I think everything. It's like copper is X2, indium is also X5. I think gallium is almost X10. Then tin, which is used for soldering. It's also used in radiators. We wanted to do a radiator project, but also heavily impacted the price there. I think there's every single component, right? Then just logistic costs by like oil and everything increasing. It's increasing the energy cost. Yeah.
Are these multipliers versus last year, like X2, X10, whatever?
I would say over the last 2 years.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and then logistics. Any impact to you guys from the activity in the Strait of Hormuz, the closure, opening, all that?
We had one shipment that was stuck there for a long time, but no more. Like, doesn't really impact us anymore. Aside from the fact that we're also selling quite actively in the Middle East. We have good partners there in like UAE and these kind of countries, and we can definitely see a drastic decline there. Not only because of demand, but also because we simply can't ship things there. I feel for everyone in our industry. It will be interesting at Computex. There is this sad group hug meme. That's how I feel the industry is going to be at Computex. The good thing is that it's not our fault. The sad thing is that it's also not our fault, is that we can't really change it, right?
Yeah, you don't have
no matter
control.
what we do. If I lower the Cryonaut 1 gram price by 20%, it won't change anything. Right. So that's the problem. We know we didn't have bad decisions that caused the decline, but it also means that we can't take good decisions to really change it.
Right.
That's probably the same for everybody.
Do you think we're going to lose any of the companies, the manufacturers people have gotten to know, in the enthusiast and DIY space?
I think it's quite realistic. I mean, we don't know how things go. That just hypothetically, if things keep declining and if we would lose another 50% of revenue, then we would be on the same list. It's pretty simple. You can only compensate it to a certain degree, and there are especially some new companies out there, or that's not new, but not that old, right? 2, 3, 4 years, and they will definitely struggle much more. But I can see a couple of companies that will probably not make it through this year, which I feel really sorry for.
Yeah. I mean, then it just becomes a question of, as people get knocked out of the market and you redistribute the remaining demand, is that enough to prop up, the companies that remain? Or
I mean, it's also long term. It's not great for anybody. It's lower competition is also bad for the customer, for the consumer. You will have like long term probably higher prices, less competition. You will also from a tech point of view, you will also lose options and yeah.
Roman, thanks for joining.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Up next, Cooler Master. We met Cooler Master in Southern California, where it just opened its new warehouse that it had begun planning as a result of the tariffs last year. It also plans to open an assembly line in the U.S., but while trying to work within the chaotic framework of the Trump administration's tariffs and domestic manufacturing push last year, Cooler Master got screwed by both ends of the tenuous policy rollout. Like Thermal Grizzly, Cooler Master runs its own factories. However, Cooler Master's factories are mostly in China, yet it still has a large U.S. division with local staff handling customer support, sales, marketing, warehousing, and distribution. Interestingly, Cooler Master also has an enterprise division, which does make heatsinks that are used in data centers. Today, though, we're working with Wei Yan from Cooler Master's U.S. division. We're also joined by Kim Barraza from Cooler Master's logistics department. And this group works on only consumer products and PC DIY and PC pre-builts.
Okay. All right.
Wei, ideally, if sales were as you want them, how would this look? Would it just be like pallets on just the racking and then in and out every day?
Yes. So essentially, the idea, if run rate is where it's supposed to be, that how we expect it, you wouldn't see anything here. Like obviously, half of this will be assembly line.
Right.
It wouldn't even be racks. Right, because we do have a small room inside that we want to start as an assembly, but now in that room is storage for our marketing stuff.
So this is where last time we talked in Taiwan, you were talking about how you guys were trying to get a warehouse in the U.S.
Yeah.
And you wanted to do
avoid tariffs, so we're bringing tons of stock in.
Yeah.
And then that's what we did.
So
and then memory happens.
Right.
And then now I'm sitting with a lot of inventories that all this was supposed to digest last year. Like everyone had POs, and then they cancel everything. Everybody canceled.
Are you talking about like retailers or distributors? Or?
Everything, everyone.
Yeah, okay.
Like the essentially like it's like some product was selling like 4,000 or 5,000 units a month. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 500, 600.
Wow. Okay.
It's like it's like
1/10.
1/10 some, like not everything, right?
Yeah.
Like overall, our
What
number.
got hit the most in terms of category or?
Overall, I think what hit the most was case and servo, but then the power supply dropped the least. But again, you still see like a 20-30% drop, while other categories like 30 and 40% drop.
Yeah.
And power supply, same thing for us, dropped the least, but it's still like 20-some% drop.
Where you think it all started, where we are right now as an industry, is it the DRAM crisis?
I think it's everything combined. First
Okay.
the DRAM, then also the inconsistent of tariff, right? Because nobody knows when it's gonna go up, or nobody knows when it's gonna go down. And when I brought out this in beginning of last year, which I brought a majority, like I brought in a year worth of stock by March.
Okay, yeah.
By March,
Yeah.
because I want to ensure that, because we know this tariff, and then March there was 10%, April there was 10%, right? So I want to avoid those two tariff, and the May one, and the May day I can extend it, right? So obviously we miscalculate that, the May one, but even if I don't, we will still get hit with the 20% tariff.
If the tariffs never happened, I guess.
We wouldn't have Brian Diamond in stock.
Okay.
And then we would just run it as is, and then when the market trend went down, I would just delay my shipment, or I would cancel those POs, or move it to other countries. But again, every other country is the same issue as us, right? The memory is not just a US issue, it's a global issue.
Right, whereas the tariffs were just a US issue.
Yeah, so then when the memory hits, I can't even ask other regions to help me to digest my stock.
So is it basically, this is funny, I didn't plan to talk about tariffs in this story, but it seems like it's kind of inseparable, right?
Yes.
Like, what was the timeline on the warehouse? Like, when did you guys?
We moved in here officially July.
Okay.
And then memory, all that stuff hit in September and October.
Yeah.
So then essentially
Mostly,
at the time,
yeah, mostly October, I think, November, yeah.
Yeah, because then at that time, everyone just stopped buying. And then they're like, we can't buy, and then it adds up, right? Every month you're losing 30 to 40% of revenue, that adds up. Especially, I brought in a lot of stuff in to avoid the tariff beginning of the year last year.
Yeah, the plan was to have people assemble it here,
yes,
right?
but now we don't, because everything crashed by the time we decided.
So to get this straight, as it was pitched by the government, it was tariffs to bring manufacturing to the U.S. Right? That's what they said.
Yes.
And then you guys actually you rent a warehouse and plan to hire people to do assembly.
Yes.
And then the DRAM and SSD prices go through the roof.
Yes.
And so now you just end up stuck with an extra bill for rent and no assembly.
Yes. And then we'll have some, a lot of components that we brought in that was specific for built-in systems. Now we can't build because memory is too expensive and no one's buying. And then a lot of competitors, even though we don't consider them as a competitor like SuperPAC, IBUYPOWER, because they sell a lot of mid to lower tiers.
They're also a customer, I guess, in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they sell to Best Buy, Amazon. Like we try to build, proprietary systems. So the parts and component we cannot use in regular systems.
Yeah.
If we do, the cost will be so much, and then you add on the memory, nobody buys it. Right? So then that's another issue that we see, because we can't just build. So that's why we stop everything. Because
can I ask what? Actually, you told me before. I don't remember what it was. The cost of the warehouse, like.
Oh, the rent of the warehouse here is 54,000. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, yeah, 54,000
a month.
A month.
Yeah.
So we might be forcing to do a round of cost increase soon, because we just can't sustain it.
Right.
Right. Because we've been eating up all the losses from tariff before, even though there's no tariff now. But all this product was.
Yeah, but your money is still with the government, right? It hasn't come back yet.
Oh no, this hasn't. And then, like I said, as of today, we still can register for account to get money back.
So people at the high end are still buying, I guess.
Yeah.
Which maybe makes sense. Like if you have enough money to
spend before, you have money to spend now.
Right.
Right. But then like the high end, we probably look at about 10% drop.
And what about the low end?
Low end. So we don't have too much low end product, and that's where I think a lot of people are thriving.
What about because you guys have some cheap coolers, so how are those doing versus?
But our price is still not as competitive as Samurai.
Okay.
Right. Samurai is still like $10, $20 cheaper than us.
Right.
Right. Even we have the new Hyper 200 3D heat pipe. You see it, and then our cost was actually, when we started at $29.99, we're losing money. But Samurai is selling at $19.99, $14.99 for heat pipe too.
Do you think they're losing money?
From what I understand, when I talk to other vendors, they say like they don't think they are. But I don't know.
Well, they're like a factory brand, right? Which I mean, you guys are too.
Yeah. So I don't know how they're not losing money.
Yeah.
So that's what, like, we even talk to people that manufacture for them. We still don't get how they're not losing money. They have no one overseas. Right. Because when you have no one overseas, obviously, if you hire a person here, you can probably use that person's salary and hire like 3-4 people in China. Right. And probably even more at where our factory is located at. Right. So then, if you look at that aspect, we have people here who have full staff of sales, marketing, operation,
customer support,
right? Everything that you have here, even warehouse employees, technical support, customer support, marketing, and then we have it in different regions as well, right? Europe of our entity, everywhere we have people staffed there. While brands like Samurai, everything is from China or Taiwan, right? It's just from the hub. And then the cost of manpower there, sure, they could also have a couple hundred or thousands of people at the factory, but then those sales operation costs, it's so much lower. Right? Because just imagine, I have to pay 54,000 rents here. How many people they can hire over in China?
For 54 grand.
Like
for a month, a lot.
If you're paying 4,000 a month in China, you can find a really, really high talented person. Yeah, so on average, they're probably getting about $1,000 a month. So 54,000 here means they can hire 54 people there. Right? So that's why, like, I think that's where the hugest difference comes out.
How do you feel about the warehouse now that you're in it? I didn't even notice this. You guys got stuff on the floor too.
Yeah, because we have not enough space to put everything in. And
well, so is that just because the run rate's lower than expected?
Yeah, it dropped drastically because we also work with a lot of our system integrator partners. You just went and visited them, and you know how bad their business are.
Yeah.
So then all system integrators' business dropped by 50 to 70%. Some were good.
Yeah.
But then a lot of them just got hurt pretty badly. So the other location is just charging us per pallet. How much dollar per pallet per day? So they're charging by day. They're not even charging by months. They're charging by day. Ideally, we don't want anything to sit here more than 90 days. Nothing more than 90. That's ideal, right? But realistically, anything sits over 30 days, it's extra money because shipping costs and storage fee for a case is probably to $5 to $10, depends on the size. Right?
In total, you mean?
Yeah, in total. And then storage fee.
Per
like
case.
The longer you have, the more fee you're paying. And then each case storage fee is probably like $2 to $3. Right? Per month, right? Not per day, per month.
Right.
So then each month you have it adds on. It's not
so each month
feasible.
For a case, you might pay like $2 each month or something?
$2 to $3 around that range.
So, I mean, if your margin, if you make whatever, if you make $20 profit on a case or something, then you
lose out in 10 months, obviously.
Right.
But then again, as the video we showed before, none of our cases are profitable right now. Zero. So the more I sit, the more I lose, essentially, because I'm not making any money right now.
Are you able to not make money on cases because some other thing you sell subsidizes? You know what I mean? Like,
in the past, yes. Back in the day, we can use potential or thermal margin to cover our case margin. But now we can't because we're just losing money on both sides. Or all three sides, including power supplies. And then you have a lot of power supply company that's just selling at dirt cheap price. I don't even know how they do it. Like, a lot of their cost is actually my true cost when they're selling the market.
Their price to customers is your cost.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't even know how that's gonna work for us.
What's the freight situation? Because are you seeing an impact from the oil prices yet?
Go get gas and then you'll see.
Okay.
But now it's about $6.95 for like 87, right? It's about $6.95 right now. I just literally get gas.
I don't know.
Yesterday.
I don't live in California.
So I literally just
You're
get gas.
paying more for 87 than we would pay for premium. Where we are.
Yeah. So we're paying $6.95 last night. Let's just get gas. $6.95, right? And I tried to find the cheapest place already. It's $6.95, and then that's per gallon. So then you can imagine how the freight is now here,
right?
And then even by boat, like I said, like beginning of the year, we see the freight came down a little bit to about $3,500 to $4,000 per 40 high Q, and that's including all the costs, right? The storage, everything. Like I mentioned, so all the costs combined. but now we're looking at about $6,000.
Okay.
So it's not a lot, but it's still a lot if you consider that everything else is increasing. Right?
Is that for ocean freight?
Yeah, ocean freight. When I first started this industry from east to west, per pallet is like $60 to $65.
When was that?
When I started here, it's 15 years ago.
Okay.
2011.
So it's gone up, not quite, but approaching 10x.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Approaching 10x. So it's like it's a lot,
Yeah.
right? Because our calculation has been the same. We didn't increase because now that was the inflation. We didn't increase our MSRP because the value is what it is.
When you say value, you mean
like from our manufacturing cost to MSRP,
Yeah.
right? We're not going to sell something that's going to be $400, right?
Right.
If a 360 liquid cooler has no LCD screen on it, if you're going to sell it at $200, people will think you're insane.
Right.
But you probably have to sell it at $200 to be profitable now if you include all the R&D and all the stuff in the back end
Right.
to be profitable. Especially now that material costs increase as well in China.
What'd you say it went up by?
6 to 8%.
6 to 8.
Overall,
Okay.
6 to 8%. So that's why it's like, what can we do?
It sounds like there's two options. Like you can either more aggressively target the low end, or you can more aggressively target the high end. It sounds like mid-range is not really an option.
Yeah, because right now, if you don't have money, you're not gonna look at anything mid-range.
Right.
Cooler Master, we have a lot of middle-end product. That's
Right.
we focus on mid to higher end, even though we do have low-end product like our Q300 Aero, but we lose money selling that case. It's not 15 years ago, people care about value, right?
Right.
15 years ago, when we're selling the first, the half X, we're selling at $200, and we're moving 10,000 units a month.
Yeah.
And
How
that
many?
was $200, 10,000.
10,000
Yeah.
a month?
Just yours alone at the time.
Wow. Okay. For the half X?
Yeah, that's when the half X back in the day. And we're selling at 199.
Right.
Like right now at 199, you'd be lucky if you move like 100 or 200 units a month. Because there's so many competitors. There's so many brands have the exact same style case.
Right.
So how can we survive in this environment if Cooler Master just copy what people do? Right? That's why we have to create our own product like the Master Frame. But the problem is like, how do we bring value to those products?
Well, and a lot of and I guess to continue, I think where you're going with this is a lot of the value for the Master Frame was this idea that it's configurable by the end user on a website, and then someone in this warehouse gets that order and assembles it.
Yes.
Right. But then that's not viable.
Right now. It's not viable. Yeah, and even bringing machinery from overseas or whatever that may be, none of those are viable right now. Phase 3 or 4 will be we have machinery here,
Okay.
so that we can actually do it ourselves, right?
Right. CNC it.
Yeah, because they keep coming like, why don't we manufacture here in the U.S.? We want to, but you're not allowing us to, right? We're not profitable. How am I going to do all this high-end stuff for made in U.S. if I can't do that, right?
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a move away from ownership of the computer at all, like renting or cloud-based computing replacing any amount of personal computing?
I think for the younger generation, definitely. For people in my age, I don't know. Like I don't have anything on the cloud. Everything is just, even I have iPhone, I don't use the Apple Cloud.
Yeah,
everything is stored on my phone. Like I don't. Like, I just don't want to.
I'm the same way. If I don't auto backup anything. Like if I lose it, I lose it. It's fine.
It's like I'm not gonna store it somewhere, right? But I think a lot of the younger generation does. So then that's why you see PC industry are shrinking, right? Component business are shrinking. The system integrators are growing. But at one point in time, that I think it will eventually component business is gonna shrink even more. System integrator business is gonna shrink as well because a lot of this will become AI-based, cloud-based, kind of a program. So then people don't need to have a system at home anymore. They can just have a handheld that
basically a terminal.
Yeah, a terminal to play, right? So then I feel like that's coming, but I don't think it's that soon.
Yeah.
But again, who knows?
What do you think the end game is here? What's like? I guess two questions. Do the prices go back to normal? So do they return to where they were for like memory and storage? And then second thing is, let's do the first one.
I spoke with a lot of different channel partners, customers. A lot of them are saying that they feel like it's not, and by June timeframe, everyone's just gonna be used to it. You have no choice.
Right.
It's like gas money right now. It's
Yeah.
like it's either you're used to it or you're not, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it because that's gas price, right? There's nothing you can do. And then it's like essentially that's how it is. Oh, if you want to film here too.
Let's do this for a minute. That'd be interesting. If it stays the same because people get used to it, some of those people who stopped buying will not be able to afford to come back to the market, right? And so unless there's just like massive inflation that catches up to the prices, and wage growth would have to match that, right? Which seems unlikely.
Yeah, but if the wage price goes up to that point, then
all the goods go up too.
Yeah,
right? What's your sentiment, like personally positive or negative on what you expect of the industry in terms of performance over the next like several months to a year?
You mean the retail business?
Like consumer.
So I don't see it go down anytime soon. That's the honest answer. I don't think with the current situation, with everything going on right now.
Well, and you guys don't sell memory.
Yeah, we don't.
So you don't benefit from that, right?
Yeah, no.
Is there anything that right now you feel like could be a short-term positive?
I don't see, at least personally, I don't see anything positive from it.
Okay.
I wish I could name one. I can name
one.
Maybe there's something I don't see. Maybe the viewers can tell us whatever.
I'm just happy to hear it from someone who's not me. Because like a lot of times, I mean, I can find positives, but I can't find a positive relating to pricing.
Yes.
Like I'm just not seeing it. That maybe you could twist an argument into like, yeah, but now there's going to be more $90 cases. But you're taking all that money you're saving and you're putting it into the RAM.
Yeah.
Do you think we're in a bubble?
I thought we were in a bubble for a while already. I thought we were in a bubble since I think the inflation has been going on. And then especially here in LA, in California, the inflation is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know when's the last time you came out here, but then you can see everything's expensive.
Yeah.
Like, there's not even, like, I don't want to shout out for that brand, but there's not even a dollar menu anymore.
Right.
You can get dollar menu at a fast food place. Eating at a restaurant might be almost same price as eating at a fast food place now.
Right. What size of company do you think is the most sort of affected negatively right now? Like if you've got large, medium, small businesses in the computer DIY space.
Well, I think it's the company that doesn't sell memory.
Okay.
Large and medium size are the one that affected the most. Smaller company, because if you only have like less than 3 or 4 employees here, some company doesn't even have anybody here, right? So then they
in the US.
Yeah, in the US, they just have maybe 1 contractor here or 2. Then you're not gonna get affected as much because you have everything running overseas, right? And then if there's an issue running overseas, China is such a big country that you can go from tier 3 city to a tier 5 or tier 6 city, and you can use the same money that you're hiring in the tier 3, hire 3 or 4 people in the tier 5 city.
Right.
And there's people willing to work. So then for them to maneuver, it's a lot easier.
So what are we looking at here?
Sure. So we're looking at one of the channels that we sell to, and this is the information that we're able to obtain. So this section is for the power supply, January to April of last year versus January of April this year. And then you can see that this year to date, it's at almost 33 million, but a drop of 26% in revenue. So I mean that compared to last year, it was a 26% dip from power supply. We started seeing this dip since Q4 last year.
Okay.
So you expect Q4 last year, Black Friday, everything going on,
Should be
you
good,
will sell
right?
a lot more. But we already seen that dip since Q4 last year compared to Q4 the year prior. So the traffic on the site also dropped by 13%. So then now it's at 6.6 million.
Right.
Obviously conversion rate is lower as well. It dropped as well, dropped by 15%. And retail price wise for the power supply, it didn't decrease too much. So stable is about 0.15%.
Oh, and that's interesting too. So retail sales down, traffic down, but paid traffic is up. Which means actually if you normalize, paid traffic's up 31%. If you were to normalize for paid traffic and take it out, then the numbers are down even more.
Yes, because no one's buying, right? So you have to spend more money to do ads and then pay ad spend. That's how much they...
541K.
Yeah, but that's everyone combined, right? Not just a single company. Next one is air cooling.
Okay.
So all the air cooling, CPU air cooling. So same information up until beginning of April. You see traffic drop by almost 40%. And you can see retail sales, like I mentioned, it dropped a lot, 48%. Almost 50. That's why I mentioned earlier, like power supply dropped the least.
Yeah.
Right? It's only 20-some%. So then unit sold, 42%. Retail price actually dropped by 10%. So you see a bigger decrease in here. Organic traffic drop. Paid traffic actually drop as well.
Okay.
So, and then all the stuff drops, right? Essentially everything dropped for air cooling. So you can see the trend here that liquid cooling about 40%, drop in revenue, traffic drop about 28%, units sold 32%, but you can see paid traffic actually increase here as well, because I was gonna mention earlier that a lot of people are focused on liquid cooling now. No one's focused on air cooling. So case, you can see that total sales revenue dropped by 41%, traffic dropped by 27, quantity dropped by 38, almost 40. But this is where everyone spent the most money on case. Year over year, for the past 2 years, we did see growth in this channel about 10 to 15% per category. So then now that we're seeing a huge drop. So there was growth before.
Do you remember the last time it was like this number?
I think it was at just for 3 months.
Okay.
Beginning of the pandemic in China.
So it had fallen, I guess.
Yeah, because I think it was 2020 Q1,
right?
Because nothing can be shipped off from China due to pandemic and also due to Chinese New Year. So we weren't shipping anything in. So at that time, we have like 50 to 60% drop in business.
Okay.
But that's due to the fact that we can't ship anything out.
Yeah, right. That's kind of different.
Yeah. So that's, otherwise, since I've been in this industry, I haven't seen this kind of drop drastically, 41%. Like that's huge. And then all this money that people spend for the traffic, but yet the conversion rate still dropped by 41%.
The
and
sales,
the sales will drop by 41%. It's bad. It just shows that no matter how much you push them to build a system, they don't want to.
Right. The Q300L.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys are still.
We're losing so much money selling that case. It's the top ranking, the top 3 ranking. On
what is it? $40?
Yeah, $39.99, $40. Yes.
Can I ask like how much you're losing on the case?
Essentially, you purchase one, I'm losing one.
Okay, got it.
So essentially, I'm losing the actual cost of each unit.
Instead of buy one get one free, it's like buy one lose one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, that's how much we're losing. Because
so what's the strategy? Is the hope that they just buy other Cooler Master stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So the connection that, hey, if you buy a Cooler Master case, will you buy Cooler Master cooler or power supply, right? That's what I mentioned before. Case is so important to us, right? That's why we are in hope that they might buy something else from us.
Ocean or air freight, really the question is just, have you seen an increase already? And because the oil prices have gone up, so what are you seeing on freight?
So last year, container freight was around 1.5K to 2.3K roughly on an estimate. Because everybody imported during the tariff uncertainty last year, a lot of people aren't importing this year. Okay. So regardless of oil prices going up or not, the 40HQ freight is staying roughly about the same. So right now it's around 2.8 to 3.2. It did increase a little bit, right? But that's based off the carriers. So they're trying to control it by blank sailing schedules, which is basically canceling shipments or having fewer ships provided to importers to be able to control that price.
Does that just mean they're trying to make sure they're fuller before they ship them?
Correct. Okay. Yeah. So right now, like I said, the demand isn't there because people aren't importing. Once again, they try to import before the tariffs.
Right.
So they're just trying to create that demand. And that's where they're trying to fluctuate the pricing. But if the market isn't there for importing, they can't really increase exponentially.
You know, with the Strait of Hormuz closure, I mean, I guess I'm not sure what the status is as this video goes live, but even just today, I think there was a change to the status. So it seems like closed, open, or one's blockading it or whatever. Yeah. Are you seeing ripples from that at all in freight?
For us, no, because we're shipping to the West Coast.
Okay.
For the Strait of Hormuz, it's mainly shipping to the East Coast or to Europe. So they're having to go through Cape of Cod, I believe, to ship that way, which is taking longer to ship I think it adds like 10 to 15 days.
Oh, wow.
So it's not affecting us directly because we're primarily just shipping to the West Coast. Even to our East Coast customers, we ship west and then do rail to them. Yeah. So it's mainly affecting the East Coast. I know what did get affected is our inland freight. So gas prices right now are crazy, especially in California, right? A shipment that would cost us $400 to ship to the East Coast increased about 10 to 20% now because of diesel going up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So now it's about $600, and that could be 1 pallet, 2 pallets to ship. So that did affect us, and it is affecting us right now.
So is that like if you take something from this warehouse, put it on a truck and send it to like Micro Center, East Coast or something?
Yeah, diesel, oil, that affects everything. That affects the economy. Oil goes up, prices go up just overall.
Do you guys factor that into the price you're selling stuff for at all?
We haven't. So we're kind of just eating that freight cost right now. We're hoping freight does lower. We're hoping the war ends soon. I don't know if it is based on the way things are going. But yeah, as of right now, we're just eating that freight cost.
Okay.
But like we mentioned earlier, the second half of the year, we are going to look into hiring prices. So if freight just stays stagnant from this point going forward, that might be something we'd look into.
Right. Just to throw back to tariffs a little bit, Wei and I were talking, we were realizing a lot of this is, I thought in this video we would have no real reason to talk about tariffs. And the more we were talking, the more it's like inseparable, because you guys and other companies brought in a lot of inventory to get ahead of the tariffs. And now you have that inventory. Since we talked last time, how has that situation changed?
They continued to fluctuate. The tariffs did get challenged.
Yeah.
Right. So they got taken off.
Right.
So now we're working on getting that money, or trying to get that reimbursed. That's gonna take a while.
There's the IEPA tariffs, right? The IEPA, yeah.
Last time when we had the reimbursements back in 2022, it took almost two years to get everything fully reimbursed.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not gonna be something that's.
What was that for? I don't really.
It was the initial 25% that Trump had done.
Oh,
yeah.
From the
for
first
certain
term?
items, yes, from his first term.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Does it seem like there's any more or less demand right now, or especially in the PC industry, just given the the economic conditions?
So we did have a meeting with one of our freight forwarders just 2 weeks ago. Their market is also down, not just with us, just overall because of the economic situation. So I can't give you an exact percentage of how much it dropped, but they are losing freight volume.
Right. Okay. So what did you want to show here?
Yeah, so I'm going to show you a couple of brands, but obviously we're not going to show which company it is, but a couple of companies, they are managed to be able to gain in this market, right? Earlier we showed that power supply dip about like 20-some%, 26% I believe, but here's a company that you can see that they actually grew by 52% in market share. But also this can due to the fact that, they also added additional new product SKU, right?
So they've increased their power supply sales revenue by 53%?
Yeah, by increasing their product SKU by 66%. So, so if you want to increase revenue in the time now, it's add more product line. That's more potentially at the right pricing, or just add more products so then that way people can notice you.
What's the downside of that for the manufacturer?
Well, then if you're a true manufacturer, then the downside is that for us, each time you switch a production line, it's about 2 hours. You've been to the factory tour, you've seen it.
Yeah.
And then each time you switch an assembly line, it's 2 hours. Then that's 2 hour downtime. And especially if we manufacture ourselves, then you can't feasibly do that, because then we have to care about our global product as well, right? Everyone else is making. So the more product you have, the less time you have focusing in other products.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right. So then have 25 power supply SKUs, not a lot essentially, but then again, then you're deterring away from the focus of the other power supply, especially if they increase by double, right? And their revenue double, essentially increased by 52%. So it's kind of close, right? 66% increase in product, 52% increase in sales. So that's another strategy people can look at. targeting certain product line in the market that potentially you can gain some revenue, then do that. And I think this brand did it a lot much successfully because not every brand can duplicate, like, oh, I added by 66% and then the revenue is there. A lot of times it would be 10%, 20% increase.
Yeah, if that were guaranteed, you would just do it, right?
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. So you can tell this is an example that someone did it and then they did it pretty well. Yeah, so next one we have water cooling, CPU water cooling. And another smaller brand, but you can see they have a 27% growth. They dropped the pricing by 14%. So a lot of smaller brands you're seeing growth right now because they're doing ads now because they know that by doing ads, they can potentially increase their revenue because a lot of people are looking at price sensitive product, especially when you do ads on the channels you will be able to see, right? If you put your product next to a product selling $149 and yours is $100,
yeah,
$40 savings, $40 savings.
That's a lot, yeah.
One last one, which is computer case. So decent sized company. So you can see that they grew about 35%. Units sold grew about 71%.
And this is January to April, right?
Yeah, January to April this year. And then you can see the retail price dropped by 21%.
Right.
So that's a huge drop.
So their strategy was to shift to the lower price segment.
Yes.
Is this the exception right now to see a company up like this in a category?
I think it's exception. All these examples that I should share with you, I think they're all the exception because they're doing something a little bit different.
Really what I'm trying to figure out from the trip is like, is the worst yet to come or is the worst behind us?
I think we're at the worst situation. Freight increases, material increases, memory prices up, and I can't imagine, and the material cost increase, right? Everything it's there, just minus the tariff. Right. If the tariff come, we are at the worst already. It can't get any worse. Knock on the wood again, right?
Is this real wood?
No, we can't afford real wood. Sorry,
the tariff was too high.
We need some tariff money back. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining, both of you. Up next, GSKILL. We were originally supposed to meet GSKILL in person for this trip, but then our car was broken into in San Francisco and my passport was stolen, so we did a web call instead. This one is pretty interesting. GSKILL is a memory module manufacturer, so they make the sticks of RAM, but not the actual memory supply itself. That comes from the big three. GSKILL gets both ends of memory pricing. The company's revenue per unit should go up, on average, as a result of higher memory costs, which lead to higher stick prices to consumers. However, because GSKILL doesn't make its own supply of DRAM, and because sales volume will decrease as a result of the high price, they can still end up potentially worse off than before for profit or squeezed for margin. GSKILL provides a lot of transparency as to how the memory business works, answering key questions for the story. The big thing on the memory side that's been useful has been getting context from like CORSAIR, for example, which you guys can help with also. On I think people have this assumption that if the cost of like a Trident Z kit goes up by 5 times, then that means GSKILL is making 5 times more money, you know? Like, which is not really how it works. So
yeah, to be honest, even on socials, there's a lot of like people assuming that we're just making bank off of this. But to be honest, we're at the hands of our suppliers.
It's a lot about where the cost comes from. It's not like we decided to increase our prices, as you've said, willy-nilly just because, you know, there's a shortage and we want to make more money.
Right.
We're actually hurting.
Well, everybody's hurting.
But this is very unique in that it just jumps so high, like in multiples within 2 quarters.
Right.
Yeah.
If an AI server deployment uses a ton of memory, does it tend to get filled by companies like GSKILL, or does it tend to get filled by, you know, companies that either are direct supply or are specialize in that type of thing?
Yeah. So pretty much anything that goes to data servers or like the big guys, they buy directs mainly because they can lock down the pricing through contract pricing. They can get a stock forecast to lock down whatever they need or want. And then That way they can pretty much estimate and have a stable financial report at the end of the quarter or whatever. So that gets locked down, and then Samsung, Hynix, Micron, whatever, they would plan around that, and then any excess would go to other customers or clients or down to us. So yeah, it's totally different on the NVIDIA side or the AI server sides.
You guys were saying that everyone's hurting, including potentially the stick suppliers, or I should say the manufacturers. So what does that look like for GSKILL? Like where does sort of the pressure come in, or why would a memory company feel pressure when it's the memory prices that are so high? If you could walk through the basic economics of it.
So in terms of IC, obviously the IC makers would decide on the pricing of it. And back when it was at a low point, I think it was around $3 to $5 per IC. So if we do the math, a single-sided memory module uses 8 ICs. So let's say we're taking $5 per IC. That's $40 per module, just based on the IC. So let's say if we have another $10 on top of that to cover the PCBs, the other components and stuff, that would bring it to $50. And if we add in our overhead, like our admin overhead, our testing overhead, our manpower, shipping, and you might also add in a couple of bucks for, like, for example, Newegg, Amazon, Micro Center, their earnings. That might add another $10, let's say, for example. So that's $60 per module. That's $120 per kit. And then plus whatever sales tax, right?
Right.
So that would be the end user price. But we are seeing that IC pricing jumping to, how much is it right now?
It was back in February, the all-time high was $55 per IC. Same time it was low of 35.
So let's say $50.
Yeah.
$50 per IC. That's a 10 times jump. And so you would be seeing a $400 per module cost just on the IC alone. And let's say you add in the extra $10, that's $410 for just the BOM cost, the material costs. And then, maybe 420 and 430 to ship everything over, and that's the end user price.
And then Newegg cost as
right.
well.
And so you would see from 120, 25, 120 up to $450 just because the ICs jumped 10 times. And we're making the same amount of money, but because it's so expensive, not a lot of people are buying it anymore. So our earnings go way down, if that makes sense.
That does, yeah. Especially if you're not able to scale the margin percentage.
Right. Yeah. So the economy of scale, when the price goes up linearly, our sales volume go down like exponentially or geometrically. So that really hurts.
Has it been like this in past shortages that you've been at GSKILL for?
Like our bosses, when we talk to them, no, they haven't seen this ever. Like within the last, I want to say 30 years that since GSKILL's been established, we're facing a long-term shortage, and pretty much supply any retailers that have stock, if they still have stock, is facing stock issues right now.
Do you guys, when you're buying supply for memory, are you buying from the same sort of fixed supply as GPU VRAM might be coming from? In other words, do they all come from the same, I know they're manufactured differently, but do they come from the same kind of pool of wafers ultimately?
In terms of memory, let's clarify that there are 4 main types of memory in production at any time that are not interchangeable. One is DRAM, which is like DDR5. The other is LP DRAM, which is low power for laptops, mobile, and like NVIDIA servers, they use LP. It doesn't matter the form factor, it's the IC that matters. So LP is different from the normal DRAM stuff. And then you would have HBM, which is mainly for servers now for the AI accelerators. And then there is the GDDR stuff, the graphics GDDR. That's in a different manufacturing line. So pretty much the wafers get cut across these 4 types. And what's causing this certain shortage right now is that the HBM is eating up all the manufacturing lines and all the wafers, because that's what's making them money. And it makes sense as a business. So pretty much they would take wafers and supplies from the other lines. So now we're facing a shortage from DDR. And that's what is hurting us right now. But even within DDR, there is a certain tier. At the very top, you have the contract pricing stuff, where they would contract to, Google, Amazon, Facebook, all these data centers.
Apple.
Right, exactly. So they would have the priority of getting stuff because it's on a contract. If you violate that contract, you have to pay out legally and stuff. That gets really messy. So that they get priority. And then once they're done with that, that would mostly be like Arden stuff. And then the next level tier would be like the major SI systems like Dell, Lenovo, HP. Those kind of people would get also contract pricing. So after the contract pricing people, and that's when the DRAM stuff falls to the module makers. So it would be us, CORSAIR, Kingston, for example. Anything that doesn't make to us or anything extra left over, that would actually go into other products, if you can imagine. There would be refrigerators, TVs.
So then the module makers are relatively low down on that list. Do module makers tend to be, would that be spot pricing that they end up as, or is there something in between contract and spot?
Okay, so in terms of buying and sourcing the IC stuff from, let's say, Samsung and Hynix and Micron, anything that you buy directly from them is typically based off of the contract pricing. So even though we're not, so let's say the data centers or HP and Dell and Lenovo buys $5 ICs from these IC makers. And we would go, hey, they get $5. We want $5 too. And so, we follow that contract pricing. There might be slight adjustments based on other factors, but it's pretty close. But that's directly with the IC makers. Spot pricing, because it's non-official from it's non-IC maker pricing, right? So it's like, let's say we want to buy from, I don't know, CORSAIR. We don't, but let's say we want to buy from CORSAIR. They would go, okay, the contract pricing is $5. Let's, if you want, I can sell you some for like, $6. And we're like, okay, $6, fine, right? Pretty much a agreement between module makers or between these traders to agree on a price and move that IC. The analogy is that you remember back in COVID, there was this huge toilet paper crisis, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you go to the store. The store sells, I don't know how much like a pack costs, maybe $10.
Sure.
Okay.
There's a lot of, you're getting into there's a lot of details we need to define here, like how many ply the toilet paper is and how many rolls per pack. But sure, let's say $10.
Double ply Costco pack.
Okay, got it. Sure, $10.
Okay, $10. Okay, that makes it easy.
Yeah.
So let's say the Costco sells, or Walmart sells like a huge pack for $10, and that's what you usually get. You get $10 of toilet paper, and that's the IC maker. They give you a contract pricing of $10. You accept that because that's what everyone pays, right? That's normal. And then now suddenly everyone wants toilet paper, maybe because the toilet paper factory burned down, or that Amazon suddenly needs a surge of toilet paper, and then suddenly there's no toilet paper in Costco and Walmart. And so what you have to resort to is go, hey, Wei, do you have toilet paper? And because I remember you going to Costco stocking up on toilet paper last week, right?
Show me the money.
Exactly. So he goes, well, I bought it for $10. I can sell it to you for 20, right? And then I'm like, fine, I'm hurting for toilet paper. I'll buy for 20.
Right.
And then next week he regrets that pricing because now everyone's asking for him for toilet paper, and he goes, now I'm selling for 100. This huge analogy, that's something similar to the IC spot market.
Yeah, if you wake up one day and you find out some AI company has reserved some massive percentage of the memory supply, you go to bed and things are relatively normal, and you wake up and you find out 40% of the supply has been reserved. What does that look like internally? You know, like what happens at a company like GSKILL? Is the building on fire? You know, like, are we calling meetings at 7 a.m.? Like, what does that mean for module makers?
That means an immediate jump of expectations for pricing. Because like contract pricing is, because it's contract, it's agreed upon, and it should be long term. So it's set like either monthly or bi-monthly, depending on who's setting it.
Contracts is quarterly.
Or quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a set period of time. So let's say 40%'s been reserved. You can expect that next cycle that price is going to jump because of that shortage. And you would have to be prepared to know that there is a jump. And pretty much the moment, you know, you have that set period of time to get as much sourcing and stock as possible before that price jumps. So that would be step number one: obtain as much ICs as possible before that expected price jump. And then once that price jumps, it pretty much goes into who can last the longest with their stock, whether or not our stock can move to the consumers or to our customers, and then the worry and the stress would come from how can we get more ICs, regardless of pricing and whether or not that pricing will work.
Does CXMT or any of these other newcomers, CXMT is the only one I know of that's kind of relevant right now, but does them existing do anything to abate or help with the demand?
I don't want to get into CXMT too much because that becomes political, like really quick, really fast.
Okay, all right.
But essentially, at the moment that we're seeing, there doesn't seem to be a huge impact in terms of the global market.
Is the market shrinking, you know, in terms of the, I guess, the amount of people buying PC DIY, you know, memory kits?
Considering the pricing, it is definitely shrinking, but it's not that people just don't build PCs in there, but they're holding out. They're holding out because the pricing is just too damn high. Previously, let's say like 5 years ago, or before this whole crisis started, the RAM pricing in terms of relative cost to the entire PC is about, you know, maybe 10 to 15%. You're willing to spend $100 on memory for a $1,000 build.
Right.
That sounds reasonable. But right now, you're spending $1,000 on a $1,000 build. That makes no sense. So that actually impacts another thing. We're actually seeing a huge surge of RMA, because before people are probably going, oh, I can just spend $100 or $200 on a memory kit. I'll just, you know, replace it as opposed to RMA and wait like, you know, a week or two for replacement. But now they're going, a week or two is worth $1,000.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Is the worst behind us? You know, is the worst yet to come? What does it look like? What's the feel you have?
As far as we can tell, it's going to last for quite a while. We don't know how long it's going to last. But at the moment, there's nothing that we see at the moment. And obviously, things change, like, you know, maybe next year or 2 years from now. But the information or the news that we get, the information that we get, pretty much everyone's hurting, mainly because of this huge shortage. And there's really nothing that can help it.
Up next, Rob Teller. Rob Teller is the now former HYTE product director and is directly responsible for innovating, imagining, and bringing to market cases like the HYTE Y60 and HYTE Y70. I've been working with Rob in the industry for 12 to 14 years now, as he's gone from one case company to another, making some of the most successful cases for each respective company he's worked at. Unfortunately, Rob was supposed to join us to talk about this as a representative of HYTE when we started planning this story in December. But he was suddenly laid off in January as a part of a cost-cutting and OpEx change. Rob gives a unique perspective in this coverage in that probably, unfortunately, a lot of people can relate to his story right now. Rob hasn't found a job in the industry yet, but has a lot of insight to share. 3 months ago, you departed HYTE.
Yeah.
We tried to shoot this back then. The industry wasn't quite where it is now. I guess first question really is, what happened?
That's a difficult question based, like, when you try to figure out, like, what's your starting point, what's your ending point.
Yeah.
And there's definitely going to be entropy as to how all this plays out. What I would say that has happened is a new technological revolution came along, one that is not as dependent on you, the consumer, having the technology in your home. And moreover, they would prefer that you don't have the technology in your home for profit reasons, for scaling reasons, for reselling reasons, marketing reasons. It's a lot easier to sell someone a compute subscription than it is to deploy and deploy and deploy these different tiers of consumer hardware at different price points, different buying seasons. And it'd be real great if we could just sell you a compute subscription. And I think that's kind of the core of it. Mm-hmm. The AI-ness of it, I mean, it's kind of like high definition television or DSL or
4K.
Yeah, 4K. It's a packaging. It's an inclusive term that's supposed to get you up to a certain point.
In a way people don't normally think about. In a sense, AI took your job.
Yeah.
But not because AI has actually done your job.
No, it took it because it's basically taking consumer computers as an appliance. Mm. That's how I think about it. That
meaning it's displacing them?
Yeah. And what's difficult to tell now, even in the last 2.5 months that have passed, is, are we seeing the effects of the technological breakthrough, or are we seeing the effects of market manipulation to make you think that the technological breakthrough is actually impacting that? And that's what's really curious about right now. But one way or another, what can be sure is the consumer PC industry as we've known it our entire lives, that's gone. Like, it's gone. Every company that I have worked with, worked against, or worked for is all struggling, and that's an understatement. Sales have collapsed more than 70% year over year, and we are now far enough into this whole thing with enough blockers that no right-minded business leader will say next quarter is going to be better, this Computex will be better, maybe these tariffs will loosen, maybe this round. We're so far gone that the consumers aren't buying the stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. And that means that the market, in its kind of extremely mature sense, is done. We've kind of completed
the cycle.
Yeah,
and this has happened in other industries. I don't feel informed enough on any particular industry to make a good comparison. The only thing I can think of is that, at least with automotive, in the early stages post, Ford industrializing it, there were dozens to potentially hundreds of startup car companies, and that gets pruned over time.
Yeah.
and you end up with just a couple big ones that are left, and they kind of control the entire market.
And they don't necessarily win because they offer the best product. It's because either they've thought large enough that they can create existential threats for any competitor. Interestingly enough, that's sort of what we're seeing right now with AI data centers, where the cost of fuel is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like all industries, cars, computers, etc., it comes back to oil and fuel.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, something that I can't stop thinking about right now is if this AI is if AI is supposed to be this incredible breakthrough in logic and reasoning and understanding and inference, the cost to assume it is correct has gone up dramatically. So, you know, everyone may have access to more quote unquote intelligence, but the cost to act on any of that intelligence, the stakes have gotten so much higher, you're almost being provisioned to just not. On one hand,
what's an example of what you think a cost to act on the intelligence would be? What's the resource that you're expending?
So, as an initial example, let's say that I've studied the technology and I think that I can go and build my own AI compute server at home. That I'm going to go and get a Strix Halo or an Apple M3 Ultra, and I'm going to home grow this thing to do this specific purpose, to have this company, so that like this is my thing. It's not pie in the sky. It's, I think with this amount of logical power, I can now make this thing possible. The cost of the hardware is suddenly way too high.
Right.
That's the first metric. The second metric would be, say, travel. Let's say that you can intelligently figure out the logistics of travel or where to source things internationally. Well, hold up right there. We've got tariffs. Hold up right there. Fuel prices are through the roof. So you better be so smart, and your AI better be so smart, or else it's going to put you out of business. It almost makes me feel like if this is sort of the Hunger Games for the AI, right? Like if the conditions were too easy, no one could prove any of the intelligence is very good. Think about the technological revolutions that had come before with broadband, with you know, being able to get your mail on the phone, being able to get internet on the phone. Each step of the way, they were preparing for some revolution to hand you the keys and say, you can do it now. You're going to be great. We gave you broadband on your phone. We gave you an iPhone. We gave you IMAP mail. We gave you enterprise. We're doing it. You've got everything. And now you're going to go out and you're going to be great because we've just handed you the ability to do something you never could have before. And it's coming at the cost, though, of it's kind of a prisoner's dilemma. Does AMD sit back while NVIDIA goes all in and they say, well, no, I mean, it's all cool and all, but we've got our core demographic. I don't think anyone can actually afford to do that. And moreover, they'd probably be sued by their investors. So what we're in right now is like, you've got all these companies investing in each other, circular. Ironically, that makes it so that if the consumers aren't buying, nothing changes for a certain amount of time.
So doesn't matter until the money runs out.
They're insulated to a certain extent for them to keep doing things. It's almost like a helicopter. It's just going around.
And they've escalated to bringing that money in now from governments, you know, and playing with the idea of military contracts and things like that, where now we've run out of TAM. So we've got to broaden the total addressable market.
And then the stories that are coming out, right? Like ChatGPT, we're going to buy 40% of all the memory. Here is our
IOU.
Totally non-committal PO. So I don't know where that memory is actually showing up. But oh wait, actually we're not going to do that. And oh wait, we're not making as much money as we thought. And oh, our CEO is kind of a loser. And like, Claude just ate our lunch out of nowhere. From the Super Bowl to now, Claude just... Meanwhile, you've got Claude guys saying they've got this new incredible model that is going to scare the whole world. The whole storytelling of this is just getting so fantastical. And it's not unlike when you would hear the stories about real graphics in 1998. They're going to scare you. It's going to look so real. it's the same as it ever was. They're trying to, if you're paying money, you're the customer.
Yeah.
If they're making profit, you know, they're the ones who are winning. It's really not any different.
Cooler Master's making the point of the most successful segments right now are budget and low end. And to an extent, Jeff and Ish from HYTE expressed the same. They think sub $100, that's where it's at. And so the question I have for Cooler Master and for HYTE was, if you're telling me it's kind of hard to go on camera and tell an audience of people everything is getting too cheap, right? And obviously the RAM is in there that's blowing that out of the water. But I guess the question is, maybe, I feel like you can connect those dots a little better. When I was pitching it today, the guys I was talking to couldn't seem to quite close the circle on, okay, everything's getting too cheap. How is that still bad for consumers?
What you just said is indicative of how bad the industry is because no one can face the fact that their companies will not likely be in business next year and probably shouldn't be in business now, right? Imagine saying something so pithy that your boss watches it and is like, yeah, why are we burning this money? I would make more if we just shut it down right now.
Right.
Compute, you know, it works like anything else. If you don't have it, you are not capable. If you have some of it, you are extremely capable. And if you have more of it, you're not necessarily more capable. So for someone who doesn't have a computer to get a cheap computer, they are pretty much as capable as someone with a $20,000 computer.
Right.
That's what we're seeing right now. And the real problem, I would say, for consumers is, you know, especially on the DIY PC, what were you doing with the hardware?
Yeah.
And now, you know, there's a good excuse. They bought it to play games. All right. Games are pretty much at their limit of what you're going to be able to do visually with storytelling. Like, you've got that machine.
Yeah.
Now the real money is for the people who could figure out how to do more with more. You know, if you sold a consumer 512 gig of RAM, they are not any more capable. They're not reading their email any faster.
Right.
They're not figuring out how to make better decisions or do anything like that. And that's kind of the reason that the consumer market is kind of like
plateaued.
Yeah, I love the concept of it. I love the handcraftedness of it. That I built this is mine. I built it for my purpose. I made it in my vision. It's a reflection of what I think I can do with this technology. But economically, I can imagine how it looked bad.
Yeah, for the companies, I mean, the big
ones. For the companies. Yeah. And when you see such an existential threat, you don't just solve it with N+1. You are ready to overhaul everything because you see the end of the tracks. And I think that's what's happening.
Right.
I still see a lot of data. And I know that the #1 public company in our space, CORSAIR, they've verbally stated on the last several earnings that their profit is coming from peripherals.
Yeah.
Components are not it.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like NVIDIA saying most of their profit's coming from AI, not components. Like, you could see it right there in that CORSAIR is profiting from a thing that you don't need to build a computer. You could be using it with a netbook and still buy it. That's a problem. If CORSAIR is considered the de facto #1 or #2 in cases, cooling, power supplies, etc., and they're literally saying, we're not making our money from components.
Right.
They're not saying we're not making it from cases, we're not making it from coolers, they're saying we're making it from webcams, these little LCD keyboard things. Controllers. Yeah. We're making it for people who go on Instagram and they think they're going to make money selling you products.
Yeah.
And they're going to buy our products to sell you products.
Multi-level marketing.
Yeah, it's... I'm not hearing anyone who is leading in this industry saying that they are making their money from this industry. And then you've got the guys who are completely specialized, who are they've spent their entire effort just trying to innovate on their small segment in the industry. They're not making money. And so the way that makes me feel is to be very temporal about it, is to recognize I think this is the end of enthusiast PCs. And that's not even to mention just how fucking trash Windows is, right? Like think about how much we as a consumer and industry put up with, just how terrible and how much Microsoft takes advantage of the industry and their consumers.
I think for people who are in this hobby, specifically the types of people I'm thinking of are /r/hardware users. I think the pushback, the minute
they don't like your videos.
I know. The minute that enthusiast DIY PCs continues to exist for that minute longer, Rob Teller's wrong.
Sure.
Right. And so if you expand on it, I mean, are there qualifiers?
I could definitely elaborate on this.
Yeah.
I've been,
because where I'm going with it is I think there's a lot of room for people to push back on that.
I think the first step is we have a conversation, and I can be 20% wrong, but everybody becomes 80% smarter about it. And I think this is an important conversation to be able to say things where it needs to be scrutinized. I'm probably wrong about a lot of things that I'm saying. And then I'm going to be right about a few other things. But having this conversation means we all get to be a little bit more conscious about what's going on.
Right.
I have been in this industry 23 years. I started working with NZXT when I was 13 or 14. And during that time, I have seen what is a gaming PC evolve. I've seen people tell me what it's going to become, and it doesn't. And I've seen the amount of customization and the offerings change based on how dependent the entire computing market is on our custom PC industry. Let's call it that. The idea that it's a DIY, off-the-shelf parts. And up until now, I would say that we were living in the golden age of custom DIY PCs. You could get about any component in any size, at any price tier, at any color, in any... How many different tiers does ASUS have about the thing? You could build the computer exactly how you wanted it. So you want a power supply with the connectors on the side? Do you want them on the other side? Or do you want them where it could turn? We have maxed out every aspect. And now there's the culling of, well, what are most people buying? What is the most efficient? What's the most desirable? And so you'll start to see it condense on that.
Is that part of a natural expansion-contraction cycle?
It is, but typically that happens in its own sort of atmosphere.
Yeah.
But now we have this new existential threat of the cost of things, and also the ease of access. Like I said, if you were to go and buy a $20,000 computer today and I handed it to you, it would still be running the same shitty version of Windows asking you to install OneDrive.
Yeah.
But if I gave you a subscription that's $20 a month to Claude, instantly you will be able to do things with that you couldn't do with your ultra high-end enthusiast grade PC, even though it has an OLED on its liquid cooler, even though every fan in the case has an LCD screen on it that talks wirelessly to your mother. Like, it got to the nth degree. It finished. The golden age finished. That's sort of what I mean by that.
Yeah.
You're not going to get more options. You're not going to get more customization. You're not going to get more flexibility. You're not going to be able to make more weird oxymoron level of PCs where it's really small but really powerful, or really big and retro.
Right.
That is going to start to close because colors cost money. If you ship a case that's not black, that costs more money. If you ship a case that's white, that costs more than black. To manufacture it, if there's an air issue, if someone gets it dirty, that costs more money because there's a yield rate. So if you want a pink one, that's going to cost even more money. And to bring a pink, to manufacture a pink, where the powder coat costs more money, where your yield rate is lower, where you have to have a ton of different BOM items because it has to all be pink. It can't be pink with black screws because the people buying pink cases would be very upset about that. So you do that, You bring it in, you pay the tariffs, then you're paying high interest rates to put it in a very expensive warehouse, and it doesn't sell for 5-6 months, and you have to start lowering the price. You are now underwater on that. And that will be impacted not just due to case prices, but memory prices, SSD prices, shortages. And then even the idea, if you think you're going to lose your job, even if you can afford to buy it, you're just buying less things. So this is all going to shrink. And I don't think it's going to come back in what we see today, because we're also exiting all sorts of other golden eras of industry, right? The mass production industry is probably going to start to change into something that's, you know, where you have 3D printers, where we're not all buying these things. You're not all dependent. That mindset is changing. And I think that what we're seeing is a number of revolutions converge. And what we see today as DIY custom PC, it's not going to improve from what we have now. And so when I say that, I don't mean that to be doom and gloom. I mean it to cherish it. If there is a computer spec, if there's a part that you are dying to own, you think this is going to complete you and this is going to represent whatever era of life that you're in today, and you're spending a lot of time, do it, because it's not going to be there next year, and it's not going to come back the year after.
And just as a reminder for people too, you do not currently work for a company.
I don't. I am.
So other people have said something similar today. All of those people have something to sell.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's an important perspective, because it is, I mean, even if it's something small like the color choice of cases, which is pretty small in the grand scheme of, scale of things, I suspect the color options will be reduced. The thickness of the steel will go down everywhere it can. They'll go to 0.6 in the top panels.
Companies will have to do whatever they think of to stay profitable.
HYTE and Cooler Master had two different takes on the same thing today, which was Cooler Master thinks the place to go right now is the high end. That's the safe harbor.
They've done everything else. I mean, it's...
And so they're thinking like more expensive products. And the reason for that was...
Isn't that just like that? I can't even let you.
I mean, I have thoughts on it too.
But it's
not my job in this video to have thoughts on that. But so
wait. If you're framing your future as we got to go to the high end, you've already taken this really one-dimensional approach to thinking about what you can be doing to this industry. You are following what you think you're able to do. And an innovator goes and looks at this, and they pick up this thing that everybody else zoomed right past and said, oh, it's already as good as it can be. And they say, no, I'm going to do something different with this, and it's going to appeal to the people who want something. People are so fucking scared in our industry right now that that's their thinking.
Rob's hot takes on how these companies fare in the current climate, or if they survive. Haven?
It's not looking good. BF360 was a great case, well reviewed, everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Sales it's not looking good.
Trikes, to bring it back to that one.
The cooler was doing great, but they never really had a win with the case. And even you saw they just pushed out a lot of the products they showed, like last Computex.
Yeah.
They're not gonna work.
Montech?
Montech's the reason that Cooler Master can't do low end. And I don't think it's working out super well for Montech, and they're probably as thin as you could get with margin and with reasonable innovation at the low end.
All right, Lian Li.
Lian
Li is an enigma.
Lian Li is interesting. I think in a healthy consumer industry, Lian Li would have taken over and become number one. But
displaced Corsair.
Now it's rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. They're doing great. No one arranges deck chairs like Lian Li.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Asus, they stick around, I think, because they do all kinds of shit.
They will all be fine.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, NZXT, it's, on one hand, you could almost, you looking at where we're headed as an industry, rental PCs kind of make sense to someone who's trying to profit from where the industry looks like it's going.
Yeah, so the person trying to profit. Yeah.
Listen, we could do a whole video about the rental PC thing.
So where do you think this goes next?
Well, you've got Computex coming up. And typically Computex is the big event for our industry. And that's, a lot of companies are eager to show off their products. It's indicative of the health of their brand. We're making things. Maybe the stuff that's been selling for the last 9 months hasn't been so hot, but look at the brand new whatever with the screens and the lasers and the automatic with the remote controls. Last Computex, we were already going in with tariffs. And we could already see the effects of the tariffs. And so when we went to this CES, that was already when we were slashing budget. And going into this Computex, from what I understand from hearing from people,
unbeknownst to you at the time, I guess.
Yeah,
you were part of that budget too.
I was.
Yeah.
I was a big part of that budget. And I don't blame anyone for making that decision. Yeah. Like I said, if I'm looking at the market and I can make the greatest product imaginable and it doesn't sell, I'm not worth what they pay me. And so that makes sense. I think that you'll go to Computex and you'll see everybody putting on the show. We did the thing. Here's our version 2, and we've worked on. But behind that, it's going to be desperation. The best consumers for the products in our industry were the people that worked in our industry. Almost no one works in this industry without owning custom computer, and it's usually built exactly how they want it. A lot of those people are losing their jobs, or they feel that they are about to lose their jobs. That right there cuts a large portion of money out. I'm saying all this not because I want to be right about it being really bad, because I think this is the last opportunity for us to realize how good it's been before company X, Y, and Z says that they're closing up or they're going out. DIY gaming PCs have represented to me in like so many different ways the bleeding edge of humanity, the bleeding edge of my personal capability that I could assemble such a thing from the specs that I devised, and that it runs reliably, and that when I want to build a new one, I know how to make that better, and I know how to make it look a way that I want it to look and be a little quieter and be a little more accessible, that I have all this consciousness to have these considerations to improve my experience. And then on the professional side, to take those experiences and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of other people's money to make those products and my vision, and be able to connect with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of customers out there who also really like to experience it the way that I like it. That's coming to a close because economically that market isn't supportable anymore. And I think that there's a great lesson in here, without getting into the weeds about is AI good or AI bad or inevitable, any of that nonsense. I think it's really important for us to appreciate the things that have brought us great joy, taught us things, and helped us to connect with other people. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that now.
Next up, HYTE. HYTE has found footing and success in recent years with cases like the Y70, but it's still a new company to the industry. HYTE is owned by parent company IBUYPOWER, a system integrator, and has faced challenges as a result of the RAM price spike, landing right when it launched its new X50 case. Unfortunately, as a result of the timing with a major investment, hundreds of thousands of dollars in tooling, lining up with a massive purchasing downturn due to external factors with RAM prices, HYTE has had a rough 6 months. HYTE was co-founded by Rob Teller and Jeff Chung. Currently, it's trying to find its footing without Rob as Jeff navigates the parent company's needs. We started rolling this one a little early, as Jeff from HYTE was walking Alex from Strait Forwarding, a freight forwarding company, through some of their recent figures.
If you use December as a baseline, as 100%, the red solid line is where we think this is all through gaming chassis. It's down about 15%. In January versus December, we're down around the same ballpark as December. But now you see a 4-month straight decline and forecast into April, where we have a 35% decrease, 30% decrease, and a forecasted 38%. And the actual dotted line is HYTE's numbers in terms of revenue versus our December number. So decreased by 15%, almost 30%, 35%, and forecast of negative 40%.
Oh my God.
So from December to April, the market, we said it's a negative 38%, and for HYTE is negative 40%.
Jeez.
So our DIY is especially struggling because RAM prices are so expensive these days. Not just RAM prices. You get storage, you get RAM, you get GPU, and that's why Steve's here doing a segment on the state of the status on how everyone's doing.
Yeah.
And we show it more on the DIY side because not a lot of people are upgrading these days, right?
Yeah. So you see, this is the discrepancy that we were just talking about. Like the companies that I've dealt with, the importers, you know, that are doing like the AI sector, a lot of money over there. They're doing super well. Right here, same thing.
Yeah.
It's like the guys that are just doing DIYs, like normal guys in their in their rooms, they just want to build maybe their first computer.
Yeah.
They can't even do that now.
Especially small and medium businesses are affected. You know, the big question that we're asking everyone is just, what's the state of the industry? The hope is that you can help shed some light on that. But you know, we got through the tariff situation, and now we're in a new situation, which is the DRAM shortage and storage.
Very interesting times. Last time we talked is definitely a lot of strategy around tariff, and now it's a completely different ballgame. And just to look at the state of the industry, we have a chart to show you show the audience on how well we're doing versus the market. So if we're using December as a baseline as 100%, our January decline from December for us and the market is around 15%. And down the line through February, our decline is 30% versus what we think the market is at 35%. And for March is 35% for us and 30% for the market, and continuously on a 4-month decline into April, 40% for the market.
What do you think is causing this mostly?
I think there's different factors, but I do think RAM prices and storage prices and component costs are a big factor in playing in the volume of the case market. Not a lot of people are upgrading their PCs. People are not spending as much as they are from 2 to 3 months ago.
I guess first of all, is this the percentage? Is this by revenue trend? Okay.
Revenue trend, yes.
Okay, so for the total market, what's the size of that month to month? Is this like?
For us, it'll be hundreds thousands of dollars.
And then market-wide?
Market would be millions of dollars.
Millions.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would see a similar graph, linear graph, as different components, motherboards. You would have power supplies. I would say if you talk to different companies, they would show the similar amount of decline that we're seeing here.
Right.
So it's an industry-wide decline in the market.
Did this start because of the RAM price spike, you think? Is that like what the catalyst was to the downtrend you have plotted?
Yes, I would say that's one of the factor. But definitely competition from overseas. That's a very big factor in how is driving this decline, especially for high-priced item like the HYTE cases, where our ASP is around $300 per case.
Average selling price.
Ti, average selling price. So by selling at a very high price point, especially in the luxury case market, you would see a significant decline when people start spending their money on RAM prices, on storage, on GPU. Then you trickle down to cases. They would, hey, maybe I just need a functional PC, then a luxury case.
Just reuse an old case, I guess.
Reuse an old case,
Facebook Marketplace or whatever. You said competition from overseas. What in what way has that affected things? I mean, what is that competition doing differently now versus, like say last year or 2 years ago?
I would say very, very steep pricing, and you get more and more brands or factories trying to enter and have a footing in the US market. And now if you go on Amazon, you could see cases that are under $100 everywhere.
Right.
And the middle segment of $100 to $200 is slowly disappearing because the consumer behavior on purchasing is, at least for cases, I would say, and for coolers, is trending down on the average selling price from what it was before.
On the product side, how does this stuff affect how you guys approach making a product?
So even till last year, I would say, like 3 years ago when we were sitting in product meetings, we weren't asking the question of, oh, what's the price going to be? We started off with, what do we envision the user experience to be at the highest end? If we were buying and using this stuff and building ourselves, what does that experience look like? And that was the baseline where we started to dream. And I think dream is the appropriate word to use, because it doesn't matter cases, coolers, whatever venture we entered into, we were always thinking, what is the best we can make? And that was where we started with all that development. And it was about dreaming big, trying to do the best things possible, and then figuring out, okay, what does it actually take to make that? Is that even possible? If it's not possible, what do we need to do to make it possible? All that requires runway, funding, revenue, right? So it's all a cascading effect, but back then it was, we have a dream, we want to make it possible, let's figure out the cost that we'll need to charge to do that. And the market was receptive to that. They wanted something new that was fresh because they were able to spend on it. Now I'm sitting in these meetings and it's a different phrasing, it's a different point of view. It's not just, okay, what's the craziest thing we can make? It's, I am a consumer, I have already spent hundreds of dollars on other components. If I'm picking a case that I want to put all this stuff into, what really moves the needle for me? If I only have this amount of money, what design changes? What product features do I need to prioritize that are really going to make me feel valued as a customer and respect me for spending my money here versus elsewhere? And so the whole narrative has shifted from designing the craziest things we can to designing what people really want and need right now, because the market is dictating that.
Right.
We're seeing this shift in the market where that middle mainstream segment is basically shrinking down. You have the enthusiasts who have always wanted this, right? That's their one true hobby, or they can just straight up afford to buy whatever they want. And that, we still see that is continuing to be the case, right? If people want to build a PC, they have the resources to, they're still doing it. You go on Reddit, you see tons of builds every single day with 5090s, absolute balls to the walls builds, right? So that customer is still going to spend there. But everybody else is now being thrown into this position where there's lots of competition where, kind of Jeff mentioned, factories are coming out with really cheap cases. And as a consumer, you're going, do I really need that $300 case, or can I spend $100 here and be okay with how it looks because I need to spend everything else actually giving me FPS?
Are you saying that some of the cheaper competition comes from a company that might otherwise be the factory you would go to? You know, like companies that actually make the stuff now competing with their potential customers, or?
So that's always been the case in the industry to some extent, right? You'll go with a design, you'll work with a factory, and then some of these major factories will come out with their own designs, which you can tell are inspired by something you've designed. But the proliferation of that is driven by the consumer sentiment to be more price conscious, right? So that's why we're seeing more of these be rising up to the top of the Amazon charts, is because they're cheaper, because they have all the infrastructure already. Right. Whereas we kind of design, we work with multiple suppliers, manufacturers to get this stuff out the door. So the scale is very different, and that's why we're seeing more of these kind of come into play. And as this chart shows, that's where people are starting to spend more.
Right, okay.
But the factory making it cheaper doesn't mean the quality is cheaper these days. So when you start purchasing these cases that are under $100 versus maybe 5 to 10 years ago, these factories are putting effort to catch up to the competition and to make things that are more, I would say the quality is on par with some of the things that we're seeing that we would be making as well, because they're willing to take less margin to set their footing in the U.S.
Ken, on your side, what's the most direct way day to day you're seeing the impact of? I guess this. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was waiting to comment, but I think one of the most fortunate things about HYTE is our agility. And when you're asking that question about, like, would we release a HYTE Y70 today if we were given 4 months? I would with another product that compensated, right? Because there's going to be that cool down effect. Like we're looking at this downtrend, and people are going to want that recovery. Well, you need more options than just a high-end case. 3-4 years ago, with like the iconic Y series, this was not a problem at all, right? We dreamt. That's the right word. We aimed to be a pinnacle of like the dream aesthetic on your desktop, and we still will aim for that, regardless of what product we're going to come out with. But I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people on the street or on social media, like you mentioned, but like that phrase, "in this economy."
Yeah.
I have heard that so many times.
It's up there with
you know, it's like
unprecedented times. Right?
Yeah, like in this economy, and I'm going, oh man, okay, so you know, if that's what I'm working with between 3-4 months, yes, you're going to combat price, and 2, you're going to combat the aesthetic, but you can't. For our brand, we can't sacrifice that aesthetic. That's what we started off with, but what we can do is listen, and that's what we've done best.
It seems like the stuff you're up against is it's not just domestic to the industry, to the PC hardware industry or the enthusiast side. So what do? You know, like how do you fix or stabilize this, right? Like near term, I guess.
I mean, in my end, it's managing expectations. It's run rate control. I mean, it's weathering out the storm. It's OpEx changes, right? And we talked a little bit about that too. But we've had to make those adjustments to keep a Halo product. I think we should always have one as a brand. We should always have one, and then adapt to bring a Halo product or a style of a Halo product to people who can manage to buy one or not, right? Options are always better in a case like this.
We'll have interesting things coming from Computex that fits the current consumer purchasing behaviors.
Okay. Have any of you been doing this long enough to where, like before COVID, was there an extended period that felt like it didn't have this type of black swan event, I guess?
We see natural disasters here and there. We had the Thailand flood. We had the earthquakes. I think it was the Hynix fire. There was a factory that had fire.
Samsung plant lost power also.
Right, and that spiked. So we've seen prices fluctuate here and there through like 4x, 5x. We've seen that before. So navigating that is okay. But I think the worrisome is the fall off in, you see the chart here, is the overall TAM. We see it shrinking.
Total addressable market.
Yes, like people aren't building PCs anymore, how we see it. And we don't see a point of recovery right now, or we don't see a light at the end of the tunnel right now. We don't see the bottom. And that's what's kind of the uncertainty here. What is that recovery? What is that catapult that's going to jumpstart this again? Used to, you had things to look forward to.
Why do you feel that there's no light at the end of the tunnel for this one?
At least for how we see it is, we don't see something that stimulates the market as well as before. The technology upgrade cycle has slowed down because of different factors. AAA game, you could see how many layoffs are happening with the AAA game factories. There are not a lot of exciting games that came out.
You're such a product guy. You said factories.
Studios. Development studios.
What other situations normally would create like a wave for you guys, that you can surf, I guess?
I'd say used to is upgrade cycles, technology, CPU, GPU, refreshes, new CPUs, new GPUs. But just the focus on consumer market I wouldn't say it's been stellar in the past, let's say 2 to 3 years. A lot of focus is on different sectors. So it's slowing down of people wanting to upgrade. I think a good example is when we launched the Y60, the NVIDIA graphics card was three slots.
They were expanded to 3 to 4.
3 to 4, and then we immediately, because we had to be nimble and move fast, we had to develop the Y70 as soon as possible.
Right.
Because now the 3 slot to 4 slot in the Y60 was just suffocating the air.
Right.
So we do have to design based on their releases as well.
And part of it is also the whole industry, at least our industry, is kind of centered around, okay, CES is one of your big moments, and then Computex is the second win that you get every year.
January.
And so it's January and June. Every single year, you're guaranteed to have at least something. And so those are also some of our targets where we're like, typically launches from major hardware manufacturers to kind of push the cycle happen around that time anyway. Shortly after Computex, you usually have the super refreshes, and then around CES, you have the brand new architecture launches. So that's kind of how it's been for a few generations. And so we kind of try and align our development cycles with that.
What are the price ranges right now for cases that are performing the best? Is it sub $100 basically?
I would say it's sub $100.
Okay.
If you open up Amazon and look at the top selling 20 selling cases, you'll find majority of them are under $100.
If you were to just strip everything down to kind of bare minimum that you think would be acceptable and wouldn't get you laughed out of the market today, right? Like from a cost side, where do you think that puts you, especially as a US-based company? Because I guess what I'm trying to get perspective for is how difficult is it to make a $100 case that people feel like isn't an insult to buy, you know, but that isn't going to put you out of business to sell?
I think it's an operational exercise in looking different factors. If we want to put a hold on that, trying to enter that segment of under $100 versus our operational spend, so it's a trade-off, right? So we need to see if that $100 case is gonna make us profit to survive. But in this economy, there you go.
There you go.
Yes, you got me. We need to ride out this. We need to ride out this wave and try to make products that fit the consumers currently.
Right. Where are places you can make cuts without feeling like you're sacrificing the total quality of the case?
We all have different ideas. Huh?
Yeah.
That makes it interesting.
It's a brainstorm exercise on where to, for marketing, for example, the things that we put into the box, the inserts. Every single one of those inserts could cost money. So now we're talking about this, like down to pennies on how much do we really need this. Let's say for the packaging, for example, do we need a full color sticker? Do we need how big is that sticker? And what foams are we putting inside? How big are the packaging? If the packaging shrinks by 1 centimeter, can we put in 3 more cases per container?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's down to those details and what's acceptable to that packaging on your drop test.
That's interesting scale. That's stuff you see too.
I was just like, I was waiting for him to say that because I'm like, there's gonna be freight costs involved. Like there has to be. You know, that's just how the game is played.
Yeah, so if you could fit 5% more of the cases into per container, now you're saving per container cost that you amortize your shipping.
Right.
And the faster you ship out more products, you amortize your tooling, which can range from $300,000 to $500,000 per case.
Yeah.
And then from like a design and innovation standpoint, okay, everybody's moving towards faster Type-C ports. Is that really something that the customer is going to benefit? How many Type-C ports do I include on the I/O? Is the blue cherry switch that we put inside our power buttons, how many people actually appreciate that every time? How many people leave their computers on and never press it, right? How many people just want a button that feels good enough? All the details we put inside, like we are very obsessive about congruency in terms of design. And there are some little aspects where we've tooled something a certain way just so it looks that extra bit nicer for people who care. How many people actually care? How many people are actually going to see that? What does it cost for us to go down to that level of detail?
You know, just supplementary to that is we're looking at explorations with like the X50, for instance, going glass, non-glass, right? Saving there, or vertical or horizontal GPUs. So
does reducing the amount of SKUs help in a meaningful way? Like if you have an existing product and then you say, you know what, 5% of people are buying this color, maybe we just
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We look at the colors. We EO out a couple colors. A lot of that was trial and error to see what colors stick to the market.
When sales drop precipitously, how does that affect your decision making for how you're using your warehouses and third-party logistics and things like that. Because that's I guess like a monthly cost or something.
Well, you definitely have to speed up the time to digest your products because now cash flow's starting to come into play. Your storage costs can range from hundreds of thousands of dollars per month by storing a lot of air because we do cases and it's large. So every single pallet that is not sold to the consumer is adding up monthly costs and interest to us. So to be able to digest these quickly, I think is the key right now. And a lot of companies, I'm sure that what you would talk to is going to run into the similar issues. Is we forecasted based off of coming in from a high season of November to December. We didn't see much change. We saw a little bit change in January, and we started seeing a cliff dive from February, March, and then it's middle of April right now, which is not looking too good as well.
Strategically, is there a point at which it makes sense because of those costs to just get rid of stuff at even a loss on the manufacturing cost just so you're not paying to store it anymore?
Yeah, because the monthly, if you break it down even precise to how much it costs per month to store that particular item, it could outweigh the value of that item by itself. So now marketing comes into play. Hey, do we have things that we could bundle to just give away so I don't have these storage costs, these fixed operational storage costs that gets piled up every month. And I think coming back to your question, Steve, on if case companies start going out of business, what would that do in the long run of things? I think if companies start going out of business, as let's say us, now other companies going to enter the market through the factories can come into the market at a much cheaper pricing or better segment, better price segment in the market, but with less innovation. So
potentially less support or worse support also.
Right, so the long run is maybe we'll have less innovation if we don't ride out these times. So we're trying to do everything that's possible to ride out this bump, to try to get a good footholding so we can dream again.
So do you see it taking back up at some point in the near term, or are you just looking for stability right now?
We're looking for stability right now. I think stability is the name of the game right now. We're not putting any hopes because we don't see it as of yet. Maybe some other companies can see something else, but nothing that really that we see to stimulate the market. Can you see anything, King?
I don't know. Fed's injection of $40 billion. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
basically
maybe,
like,
possibly.
Like
another stimulus check.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Something like that.
Tax returns, right? Tax returns are coming.
Like this should usually be like a hot season for you guys. Because the consumer market's always like around like February to like June. It's like that's like that little tiny spike you guys get too.
a lot of that tax return now is probably, I would guess some people are either, if they have an emergency fund, topping it back up after dipping into it for things like gas prices, you know.
It's not been kind out there. I mean, layoff news.
Yeah.
I mean, like 1 day notices. I think that Oracle. I saw the Oracle.
Oracle, yeah. 30,000.
Getting emailed the morning of.
Yeah.
So it's a little it's scary.
Yeah. And I think also just to be clear on the messaging for everyone, I don't think anyone here blames people for spending less. The whole conversation is like, how do we try to work with this? Right. Yeah.
And to kind of speak to that point, King mentioned earlier, one of our biggest strengths is agility. December last year, we had a completely different roadmap. We had completely different products in development. We had different plans for Computex. As this progressed, I mean, even a month ago, we pivoted hard on what we can develop this year, what we will develop this year, and what our plans for Computex are. And this is when we had lots of marketing planning exercises and activities already planned in the pipeline. With individual components, like cases and cooling, you're basically beholden to the DIY market. And to some extent, SIs and integrators and boutique builders who buy from you through your channels. But
not like Dell and HP.
Exactly, because when you are a manufacturer of these other things and you have a wider product line, you have the ability to assimilate all this into one product that then kind of can subsidize that effect. Whereas with DIY brands, if people aren't spending, if people aren't building PCs, that directly impacts the case and cooling companies because they're just not going to ship as much volume to the DIY market.
Right.
And even kind of like we saw some IBUYPOWER systems really taking off at Costco because now we're in a situation where sometimes pre-builts are cheaper and give you a better value, including the warranty and services that the DIY market can't do, versus someone going out and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on RAM, storage, all the motherboard, GPU components, and building it themselves. And so that appetite for risk from a consumer point of view has reduced, which directly impacts DIY brands more.
Do you think the prices will come back down to what they were? You know, if you look at things like RAM and SSDs, obviously you guys don't sell those.
I think it's going to be hard. It's going to kind of be like the inflation from COVID where prices never really recover down to, unless there's a collapse in one sector.
A bubble pop or whatever, AI industry pop. If you have that though, you probably have greater problems.
You have greater problems. It's going to affect a lot more than RAM prices.
Right.
So
our business is built on the foundation of you buying and owning your systems, right? So ultimately, we want you to own your systems because that's the service and the product we provide. But we've definitely seen an increasing trend in rental programs or cloud compute services, right? And so as much as we'd love for you to buy and own, we do recognize that the individual's financial situation is ultimately going to be the determining factor.
Right.
If they need if they need access to powerful compute and they can't afford to go out and build a PC, sure, they might do a rental program
GeForce Now or whatever.
GeForce Now, right?
Jeff, I'll let you kind of lead with it. What note do you want to end on for the discussion? You know, what's next?
If we were to set a MSRP to design a product, the Y70 and Y70 Touch would never ever come to market. But when we were allowed to dream big, that's where we came out with our most innovative and most our product. And I really wish that we have that freedom and flexibility to do that again. But so we need to ride out this wave to try to control operating expenses, to come out with a product that fits the current purchasing cycle, and to see what happens in the next 1 or 2 years and be able to do that again.
Right. If you have some money and you give it to another company, and then they give it to you, and then you do it a couple more times, my understanding is that this creates profit. Have you tried that?
We have no comment.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Sounds incredibly circular.
That sounds like
It's
an infinite money.
Infinite money glitch.
No, it's working as designed. It's a feature.
Oh my god.
All right, now that I've jeopardized everyone in this room.
Marketing stays quiet.
Up next, Alex from Strait Forwarding, or SFI. Alex joined us last time as an outsider to the PC industry, but an insider to global logistics, freight, tariffs, and shipping. Given the amount of crossover with tariffs and given the chaotic nature of global shipping right now, Alex joined us to share insights as to how the world looks from a logistics point of view.
I think you bring some unique insight being from not a computer or hardware company, but a company that works with freight. So as just the top level again, what is Strait Forwarding? You know, what's your job basically day to day?
Well, essentially, we are just a freight forwarder. We do we just move things from A to B, air, ocean, truck. We also do a lot of filing with customs, entry summaries, just like bringing things in for people, just making sure people get their stuff on time when they want it, and providing them with like updates, specifically with tariffs over the last few years. Nothing too crazy.
So for bringing freight in or sending freight out, what are sort of the links in the chain, I guess, if just top level? So you've got the company that would be either the importer, the exporter. You have some people in between. I guess you're one of those.
Yes.
And then you have wherever it's going. So what are those in between steps?
So the first step that's in between is the freight forwarder. So those guys are just the people that move things from A to B, straight logistics. It could be air, ocean, or truck. The next step is for the custom brokers. Those guys usually deal with just importers only. They are just there to file paperwork for the importer and the custom broker.
Okay.
Yeah.
What in the time since the tariffs interview, what's changed other than everything that changed in the 3 days after we talked? Because there were a lot of changes in that week, but I guess what are the big changes for you?
I think the biggest change I've seen on the importer side is just importers really have to know what their products are now. Specifically, people who are affected by steel, aluminum, copper, and brass tariffs. Most of the time, people will just bring anything in, they'll pay the duty rate, and that's it. But now with those 4 products or product types that I've talked about, they have to figure out percentages, if there are any percentages. They have to figure out if they even want to just bring that stuff in now. Other commodities like food, they're not really affected at all. Okay. It's just food, so they're trucking along. One of the biggest, biggest customers I have, they do auto parts like OEM parts. Their struggle is that they can't really raise their prices right now because the market doesn't allow them to raise the prices. So they have to eat an extra 50% of tariffs on their cost and kind of gradually raise the prices. And obviously you don't want to price yourself out from their perspective.
So they've still got some tariffs that are just baked in, I guess the 50%.
Yeah, so that specific auto parts tariff is not deemed illegal. Those people, they're gonna have to pay until something else happens.
Got it. So what was, because the ruling was pretty recent, the Supreme Court ruling, and I've been trying to figure out what it means at this point, especially refunds, because the Supreme Court talked about refunds where they were basically like, I don't know, it'll be a big mess. and I think the it'll be a big mess was like a direct quote from one of the justices.
Yes.
But how did your clients react, first of all, when they were ruled illegal?
So the 3 questions I got from probably 95% of my clients was, where's my money? When am I gonna get my money? And how am I gonna get my money?
Okay. Who's supposed to know those answers?
The government is supposed to release those answers.
Got it.
So what I could tell you right now is it's gonna take about 60 to 90 days for you to even get your refund back once it's accepted, and they will give you back your money plus interest.
Okay.
But I don't know what the interest they're gonna give you. I think it's like between like 3 to 6%.
Oil prices, do you happen to have any insight as to if that's affecting the freight prices?
Yeah, so oil prices always affect freight prices. Ships and airplanes run on fuel. So naturally, even as a normal person, go pump gas.
Yeah.
You already feel it. So for the ocean prices, they have increased about 30% from middle of March till today. For the air freight, that price is increasing every day.
Okay.
Yeah,
more than ocean?
More than ocean. I've had some lanes I've seen prices triple in like 2 months.
Is that, do you any idea why that is?
Air has always been more expensive, just limited capacity, and they're very sensitive with fuel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just it.
Just the way it scales, I guess. And just, I don't know, jet fuel prices, how it compares to whatever boats use, but.
Yeah, I've never bought jet fuel before, so I don't know how much it is.
You haven't? I haven't either.
Yeah, I'm sure it's really expensive though.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Do you happen to have any knowledge relating to the Hormuz Strait and what's going on there, in terms of, because my understanding is a lot of oil moves through. I don't know how much freight moves through there, but is this anything where you've seen any impact or heard any discussion from your customers in relation to, whatever, blockades or oil in and out of the Strait, anything like that?
So personally, I don't have anything going into the Strait of Hormuz. What I can tell you is that I have outbound cargo from LA going into Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Usually a flight from LA to Saudi Arabia is about 24 hours. So turnaround time's not that bad. However, now, because of what's going on, they're basically created a no-fly zone going into Saudi Arabia. There are less airlines going into there, and that one-day transit time has turned into 3 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So is that just because there's just not that much volume and you're in line for a plane?
I think there's just not that much capacity.
Yeah.
So that just creates a natural backlog.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. or they have to make multiple hops or something.
Yeah. Usually they'll just fly direct. Now they're going into like Jordan, and then Jordan into Saudi Arabia.
Got it.
Yeah.
A year ago with the tariffs, one of the things we were talking about back then was the big concern was the uncertainty with everything.
Yeah.
And so on the tariff side, that seems like maybe it's resolved.
Yeah.
At least temporarily. What's the sentiment like overall? I mean, do people seem like they're in a better spot? Are there different stressors now?
I would say it's very neutral. I think the initial news made everybody happy because they're like, okay, I'm gonna get my money back. But same problems still persist. We have a lot of overhead that increased a lot. Labor is expensive now. It's just harder to run a business, at least for the importers that I deal with. Again, they're small and medium size. They are really just tempering their expectations, especially in the beginning because they didn't know how everything was gonna happen. But now I think they're kind of saying, hey, okay, these tariffs are gone now. Will this spark more buying from our customers?
Right. What clients or a category of clients are doing, if any, are doing particularly well right now?
I would say the technology sector doing really well. But if you look at the news, it seems like the cash is drying up for them too. So we don't know what kind of trickle down effect that's going to have on everybody else.
Are you talking more like AI technology sector or technology broadly?
AI technology sector.
Okay.
So even we are the technology sector.
Yeah.
DIY and computer segment has been really rough for us.
Yeah.
Especially in the last 3 to 4 months.
What I've felt is a lot of huge companies, like billion-dollar valued companies, those guys are really making a lot right now. I'm pretty sure, those CEOs and stuff, they don't have to worry about like, oh, the groceries is like 30, 50% more. Like,
how much could a banana cost?
Yeah, how much did a banana cost like last week? Like, why is this so much again? That's not something that they really think about.
Right.
It's something that, you and I think about, and then we could, relate to other people about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like something very simple, but, it's just what I've seen. A lot of money up there, not enough down here.
Yeah.
Inflation is still up there. And
I'm just personally curious.
Yeah.
What do you think about the AI craze and rollout? Because, there's a lot of, it seems to me that there's some money here, and then that money goes over here.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the money goes from here to here.
Yeah.
And then it does it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is more of a money forwarding question rather than a straight,
Yeah, I know where you're getting at. I have seen a little bit about that.
Yeah.
It does concern me because it does seem very like Ponzi scheme-esque.
Yeah.
It kind of scares me, but it's more of a wait and see
Right.
thing for me. We don't know if this is going to turn out like all the previous companies like Enron or whatever that have done something similar.
Right.
do you feel like social media has made your job harder? I ask this because every 2 days I have my boss sending me a new TikTok or WeChat video that tells me about refunds of status or tariffs.
So that's a great point to put up. Yes, it has made it a little bit harder, but only in the beginning. So between April of last year, April of 2025, and maybe like August of 2025, I think after all the news cycles that happened, I always told my clients, just wait. I haven't gotten anything on my side yet.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you
Of course, Steve. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much.
Up next, IBUYPOWER. Kevin joins us from the purchasing team, with Kane joining us representing both IBUYPOWER and subsidiary HYTE. IBUYPOWER ships hundreds of thousands of pre-built computers per year and is one of the largest system integrators in the US. Although OEMs like Dell and HP are far larger, companies like IBUYPOWER serve a role that's more consumer targeted. Kevin deals with purchasing RAM, storage, and other components from suppliers, and so has a lot of knowledge about buying RAM in the current situation. Or, as Kane put it, in this economy.
Do you have any idea as to why SIs and pre-builts have seemingly kind of fared better in terms of pricing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think what's going on is that for us SIs, obviously, there's a lead time towards like us having to procure these memory and SSD early on, right? There's also a build time. For example, for us, some of the stuff that you may be seeing out there, whether it's on retailer website or on our own website, may have been stuff that we've procured back in like January, right? Yeah, so there's definitely a time gap or a delay versus SI versus the DIY market, right? By the time that we have assembled these systems and shipped out to the retailer, right? Like the DIY market probably have already increased in price, right? While these retailers, they're just receiving in some of the maybe older pricing systems, right? Yeah.
So there's like more of I guess the volume helps you soak that for longer.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Is my memory correct that you handle purchasing?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
What does it look like when you go to buy a bunch of RAM to put in pre-builds?
So typically, obviously, we'll work with our vendor like on a quarterly basis, right? Like we'll let them know our demand, right, and try to get a contracted pricing or like a more stable pricing throughout the quarter. I would say since last October, that has all gone to drain, of course, right? Like with the memory SSD price increase, basically, we're dealing with pricing on a week-to-week basis, right? We collect pricing weekly. Sometimes we have to give feedback or give our decisions whether or not we want to purchase these within like 24 hours or 48 hours, just because I know the others out there in the market, they're also looking like for memory as well, right? So having to adapt to these like quick decisions that we have to make weekly and basically just spot buying.
Typically in a normal condition, like maybe a couple of years ago, if you need to buy a memory, is it a pretty safe bet that it's just available?
Yes, I would say so, yeah. And it's basically, we'll get it within 2 weeks, right? Like we'll buy it from someone like Taiwan or wherever, we'll get it within 2 weeks, yeah.
What about now?
There's a lead time to it. Sometimes even if we, commit a PO to certain vendors, right? They probably also, not to blame them or anything, they have to probably change how they adapt to getting the ICs and stuff like that. And they'll let us know like, hey, there's a lead time to it. There's it's probably 3 weeks or 4 weeks later, we'll be able to deliver it, right?
How does that impact the day-to-day operation or what the end user buys or pays? Like, what's the real-world impact from an extra couple weeks?
From a day-to-day operation, I would say it affects us a lot, right? Because if, let's say, a memory we're getting 4 weeks later is at A price, right? Maybe 4 weeks later there are other pricing that are out there, right? Whether it's higher or lower, right? But sometimes you've committed it, right? Like to these vendors, right? You don't want to back out on your commitment. We don't want to back out on our commitment as well, right? So sometimes you just have to eat up that cost, right? Or eat up that inventory, right? So at least on the operations side, that's what has changed and made it more difficult. From an end user perspective, versus in the past, we could say like, hey, we're certain that, hey, this is the price that we can offer to you, right? Sometimes we have to look at, our total inventory pool and then just do an average cost, right? Comparing to what we have on hand, what we have coming into us, and make sure that we can still offer the best pricing that we could with the average price, right, to the consumer.
Have you guys heard from the memory companies at all? Or I guess the stick makers, I should say, not not
the module houses. Yeah.
So have you heard from them at all about? I guess there's two things I've heard recently. One is that they are having trouble getting contract prices.
We've heard that.
Yeah, and so maybe you can. I'll kind of explain where I'm going with this, but maybe you can speak to that. And then another one is I've also heard that they're having trouble getting higher spec memory, specifically like lower latency and tighter timings. I don't know if that's something you look at on the purchasing side, but maybe to start, can you explain what contract pricing means, versus I guess spot would be the alternative?
Yeah. So to answer the first part of the question, yes, we've heard that these memory module makers, right, they cannot get contract pricing. What exactly that means, I don't know, right? Because I don't, deal with their business. Right. But at least on our end, contract pricing means that, hey, like for this quarter, at least like the pricing is set, right? Like it's not going to move at all. So like I said earlier, that has gone to drain, and no one has guaranteed like, hey, yeah, like I can give you this set pricing for like, I would say like more than a week. Yeah.
I guess to help people who aren't in the business side understand it, but why does that predictability matter?
Yeah, I think the biggest effect is that obviously apart from our IBUYPOWER.com, we also deal with the retail side of business, right? Yes, the memory that we procure can change prices weekly, but we technically can't change our price to the retailer on a weekly basis, right? It's also not a good experience for the consumer, right? Let's say like I'm selling a $1,300 system in a retailer, like I can't just adjust to $1,350.
Like
Best Buys or whomever, right? Like I can't just adjust $1,350 the next week and then adjust to $1,320 the week after, right? It doesn't work like that. So we have a commitment that we have to honor, like to these retail partners. So sometimes we just use the average cost that, the best judgment on the average cost, and we just have to commit to it.
Okay. So high or low. If it's low, you maybe don't make as much as you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of predictions that we have to do, right? Like just guesstimates, like how things are gonna go.
Right. OEMs, I guess, would be like Dell or HP, which are obviously gigantic.
Yeah.
In the SI space, how significant or large is IBUYPOWER?
On a normal year, we should be able to ship out around 400,000 systems. Now, what the future holds for this year, no one really knows, right? But we'd like to still try to maintain that and make sure that we can, crank out affordable PCs, right?
400,000 systems is a lot of systems. I think last year, I want to say CyberPower gave similar numbers on their side. So like between it seems like the two of you guys, and just so people know, even though they both have the same last name, Power, they do not share an ownership structure.
No, we do not.
But I don't know who was first, but
I think too, for everyone also, that scale of number, to us, that's a small to medium business still compared to people or MNCs like HP and
oh, I mean Dell.
So just for context, like we operate ourselves like a small business. We're also agile on the IBUYPOWER side.
I guess speaking to that, what kinds of SIs, in terms of size, do you think are affected the most or disproportionately? I mean, is it more challenging for a truly small shop, like maybe a couple employees right now, to get into it, you think, or do you see the ripple more on the more established side, just because you have more operating expenses?
I think we're going to have two perspectives. If you want to
go for it first.
Okay. Yeah. So on our side, at least on the messaging side, we are definitely, to Kevin's point, trailing behind in the industry, and there's a certain type of messaging where it's kind of like, guys, like, maybe be aware that this is happening, and if you really want to buy your PC, now's a really great time to buy, and that's very nuanced language, and we started really doing that, and especially last year towards the second half, and we were like, you really, really want to buy your PC, and it was like a really subtle warning up until like, please buy your PC because
it's going to get bad.
This is going to be worse, and you're hearing it, in the industry. And then there were observations of boutique SIs, which I think are going to be the most affected by this also. And that's unfortunate, right? Like I'm not saying like they should. I'm saying, they may not have the availability of doing contract pricing or spot pricing.
They also might not have a Kevin,
or
their
exactly.
purchasing power.
Anyone who handles procurement at all,
Yeah.
Or have relationships to AIBs and vendors that you would, having long-standing relationships. Like we're going on our like third decade, but you're seeing people out there like shipping PCs without RAM.
Yeah,
and like to me, that, like as a consumer, one, it kind of scares me because like I don't know if you're going to service a PC that I will put my personal sticks in, and then secondly, does that invalidate things like from other vendors?
Right.
I think Microsoft's very sensitive about
that
stuff.
Are there any warranty concerns and stuff like that?
Yeah, all of that servicing. Like what happens if that's the first step, right? Oh, now you're not shipping RAM. What else will you not ship with? What about next
SSD,
year?
right.
What about next year? Will you ship at all?
Yeah.
Right. And that gets a little bit tough for consumer confidence. It's kind of like you may really love your loyalty to a certain brand, but what if they just don't exist anymore? What happens to your PC and your aftercare?
Yeah, well, the answer, of course, is there is none for the aftercare, right? Like the company's gone, so unless they get acquired or something. How long have you been at IBUYPOWER?
10 years.
Okay, cool. So have you been through cycles of RAM or storage prices? I mean, even GPUs and CPUs, I guess. But have you been through cycles where it's suddenly skyrocketed before?
Yes.
Okay, and then does this feel different to those times?
So the most recent one, if everyone remembers, is during COVID for the GPUs, right? I think during that time, GPUs like tripled the price. So from a price increase standpoint, it does feel very similar in a sense that it increased by a lot, like within a short amount of period of time. But I think what's different this time is during COVID, PC was a necessity, right? Like people were working from home, they need to buy a PC, so the demand skyrocketed. But this time, it's different in a sense. It's because of AI, which people keep talking about the AI stuff, and no one really sees, the end of the tunnel quite yet, right? Like when this is gonna kind of settle down.
Do you think we're in a bubble, like AI bubble?
It's kind of the world we live in, and where it's dictated by powers greater than us for components. So
right. When you're talking about not seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, is that in terms of availability to actually get the parts? Is it what does that mean to you?
I think from what we heard on the side of, I think it's more on the pricing side of things. Okay. Yeah, like from information, we're still hearing that like pricing still going to continue to go up, right? That makes us worry, how much more can the consumers really tolerate, right? Yeah, we get it. There's a demand out there for the AI, for the servers and stuff like that, right? But the consumer side, they may not be able to take, more than $200 increase on their system, right? Yeah.
One of the stories I've seen recently, there was a really small blip down on memory prices, DDR5 prices. And so people were showing this PC part picker averaged, price graph.
Yeah.
And you can see it's like 7x, and then it's like that, right? It's kind of like if you look at a 5-day stock chart, and they're down 10%. Yep. Yeah, fuck those guys. And then you click max, and it's like, up 22,500%.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you make of that? Because I saw a lot of headlines about. We haven't commented on this or looked into it yet, but about the prices coming down. One of them I saw yesterday was RAM prices have fallen 5%, and then you do the zoom out, and it's like, cool, still $900 more expensive than it was.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that a sign of it improving to you? Is that just like a blip where it's?
Personally, I think it's a blip,
Okay.
because sure, there may be one or two vendors out there that lower the price by 5%, but how much availability is out there for this down 5% stock, right? It could be just 10, 20, right? But people see that 10 or 20 pieces that got lower 5% and think that, hey, like it's decreasing.
Right.
I just wouldn't make judgment based on just like what a blip that they see out there,
you
right?
need more data.
Yeah, you need more data,
Okay.
to see that, yeah.
What do you think it would take to get the RAM or the storage prices back down?
I think demand softening is gonna be a major factor to it. The AI server, I can't comment too much because I don't know too much of it, but it's a supply demand thing, right? Like if that demand softened, then naturally, if there's still a market for this, they'd have to sort of find a way to lower the cost down, right? Yeah.
What about have the risks changed for you guys in terms of over or under ordering inventory?
Definitely. We're a business too. We don't have like unlimited money to buy all the inventory in our world, right? Like sometimes we do have to take out cash to buy these stuff in advance, right? So that's a huge risk, right? A financial risk on a company, right? Whether it's big or small, it's all about cash flow, right? How to make sure the cash flow stays afloat, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're saying there's more of a lead time as well, a couple of weeks, if you under order, I guess you have a different problem.
Yeah, under order, we won't be able to supply to our customers, right? We can't, honor our commitment. If we over order, then, it's a lot of cash that we have to put up in advance, right? Like to buy these parts. Yeah.
So SIs have done, it seems like at least better generally than DIY over the last couple months. Do you think that's going to continue?
No, I think we're trying to survive too as well. And to my point earlier, there's a point where, whatever that inventory we had before is going to exhaust and our pricing is going to catch up to the DIY market, right? Granted, let's say like the overall memory pricing stays the same, then our, definitely our pricing is going to catch up to whatever it is right now, right? If it increases, then yeah, sure, there may still be a lag, like, behind, right? Because we're sort of purchasing and averaging our costs in advance. But yeah, like I do see that. Obviously, no one knows how the pricing is going to go, but if it stays the same, then there is a point that the pricing is going to catch up, right? I don't think it's going to go back to where it was before, but we can only hope, right? Yeah.
You said you went through sort of that COVID era surge. Do you feel like those prices returned to what they were?
No, I still feel like nowadays you buy, let's say 5060 is already more expensive than, I don't know, back then it was like 2060 or 3060, right?
3060,
like so, yeah, 3060. So it was already more expensive than 3060 before, right? So inflation or whatever it may be, right? I think, just as time goes on, these ASP of the individual items are increasing, right? Yeah.
What's your sort of strategy or outlook? What are you trying to do right now to cope with the current system?
I think we spoke about it a little bit in the beginning. We're trying to survive. If it means that we need to do spot buy to keep the price affordable to the consumer, we're just gonna keep doing that, right? And then just adapt to the changes that are happening on a weekly basis, right? And see as we go, right? I think that's the only thing that we can do right now. Yeah.
Right. Where do you think we are with storage?
We've heard information that storage is gonna go up even further, and even more than what we're seeing, like with what happened with memory right now. Obviously, what we're seeing out there in the market, I don't think has reflected that quite yet. So we're trying to hedge a little, right? Like make sure that we can still procure it at the cost that we're seeing out there in the market if we know that it's going to increase further like down the line, right? Yeah.
Up next, Corsair, meeting with George Makris, who started at the company as a memory test technician and now has worked his way high up in the chain. Corsair has changed a lot since we met with them last year twice for the tariffs discussion, as Andy Paul, then CEO of Corsair, was winding down his role to retire after decades running the company. Since then, Corsair has changed leadership. Like GSKILL, the company sells and makes RAM sticks, but not the DRAM supply itself. Unlike GSKILL, Corsair has a massive business in peripherals, power supplies, and cases. Corsair is also one of the few public American companies in the component space that caters to consumers.
So my first job was to test memory modules and screen them to see like which speed grades they would meet. This is in the ancient days of DDR1. So my job, I'd come in the morning, I'd have a tray of memory chips or memory boards to test, plug them into actual motherboards, overclock each motherboard to a new speed grade, and then run it. We had a little device that sits in a PCI slot called a RSD Pro. An RSD Pro device would test the memory to see if it failed or not. And if it went through about a 45-minute test and it passed, you'd overclock 2 more megahertz and then keep going. Once it would fail, I would take a little piece of sticker and write, 265 and 241, whatever it would fail at. And at the end of the week, I'd have a tray full of memory with all the speed grades. And so we'd know the yield. We'd say, oh, these new chips from Samsung TCCDs or something like that would be, all of them would match. They would all do 275, 70% yield. So we knew we had a 275 pretty good yield rate on those. And so, checking memory speeds to make sure that they would pass new speed grades and then telling execs, hey, we have a solution for a 4400 part, or we have a solution for a 3800 or whatever it was. And that was kind of my job, or Cast 2 or whatever.
I'm guessing that's not how it's done anymore.
It's a little more elaborate now. Yeah, we do IC individual. So instead of testing a whole memory stick, we will test ICs.
If you could help explain where companies like Corsair or GSKILL or whomever else kind of land in the supply chain, I think that would help, because You guys don't have the fabs that make the memory.
Right. It's it's Samsung and SK Hynix and Micron are the three big guys that make DDR5 fabs. They make the chips, right? They're actually the guys who have the fab that builds the chips. We don't do that. So like Micron had Crucial was their retail brand.
Right.
And Micron would sell chips, but then they would also sell modules into the customers as Crucial. We don't have a fab. We don't sell to anybody. We buy chips from these guys. The two ways to do it, like you mentioned, whether contract or spot market, there's more ways than that, but realistically, those are the two big ways people hear about. Contract means you go to Hynix or whoever and you say, hey, I need a guarantee of this many chips for this long at this price. And you sign a contract and they say, we'll guarantee you, I don't know, 10,000 chips a day for $17 or whatever the number would be. And you, as long as you buy it for 3 months and you pay that much and you pay this up front and whatever, we have a contract, right? When memory prices are not crazy volatile, those contracts are pretty common. You'll see, small PC builders or big PC builders, Dell, Apple, those guys have contracts all the time. Right?
Yeah.
They'll get contracts on storage, they'll get contracts on that. The next tier down, the boutique guys, Origin or Falcon Northwest or whoever, those guys will sometimes have contracts, but not usually because they're not in a high enough volume. Sometimes CyberPowers and those guys will have it too. The way to have a healthy business as a memory company is you buy, build, and sell as fast as possible. Because volatility means that,
as opposed to speculate?
As opposed to like speculate, put it in a warehouse and hope it gets more expensive. Because that's the metaphor that people use around here sometimes is like a bakery, right? You don't want to sell day-old bread or 2-day-old bread. You want to bake your bread and sell it that day.
Right.
If you're out of bread by 1 p.m., great, you're done. All your fresh bread is gone. If you, at the end of the day, if you've got a bunch of loaves of bread, no one's coming in tomorrow to buy stale bread. All your competitors have fresh baked bread, right? So that's kind of the metaphor people have used, or the analogy, I guess. The way we've typically been able to be profitable over time is be really good at the logistics of buying, building, and selling quickly. Because people talk about, oh, it's volatile, prices can go up. And we make a lot of money if the price goes up tomorrow.
Right.
But we also lose a lot of money if the price goes down tomorrow, right? Because the replacement cost is not the only concern. But if I buy today at $30 for a chip, and the price goes up to 35 tomorrow, and I sell 2 days from now at 40, then I look great. I made $10 extra, right? But the price could easily, and most times, the price can easily drop by $1 or $2. So if I buy it $30 today, but then you buy it $25 tomorrow, you can undercut me. You can sell cheaper than me. And so I have to sell at a loss. I have to lose money on that.
Right.
So typically, because the price has gone like this.
Sit on it and hope. And I guess if you do that now,
you don't sit on it. You just don't. You get rid of it as fast as you can. Because if you try and play that game and time the market, you won't. You just won't.
So it's like the stock market then. You don't try to time the market.
The only people who make money in the stock market are people who buy stuff and just forget about it forever. All the Wall Street bets guys.
Have you tried that for memory? Like, have you tried? Do you have a bunch of DDR1 sitting somewhere?
I do. Because I'm a pack rat. I have
it might be a good time to sell it. I'm just saying.
I have old modules still in the packaging. There's no
it's in the
market.
Being in the packaging retains the value.
I'm hoping it's like like Star Wars collectibles or something.
Yeah, right.
No, it's realistically you try and get rid of it as quickly as you can. It's the only way to be, memory is a low margin business in general. You're going to make in a good time 5-10% maybe on margins, and that's not. I'm not saying our margins, but I'm just saying in the memory business as a whole.
Broadly.
And that's and that even depends on how you do the accounting, right? But realistically, it looks great when memory is going up and up and up and up. You can say we bought, we built, we sold. It keeps going like this. If you think that's going to keep going forever, you go wrong. It just we don't know. Nobody knows when it will stop. It could stop tomorrow. It could stop 2 years from now. But at some point it does, and it's like a musical chairs thing. You don't want to be the guy holding a warehouse full of memory when the price does come back down, because that will put you out of business. And we've seen our competitors have gone out of business. I mean, there's a number of memory companies that tried that and don't exist anymore.
Right. Do you think it'll go back to some form of the way it was? Has the sky fallen? Is the sky in the process of falling, or will the sky not fall?
So as somebody who built my first computer in like 1996, so 30 years ago now, I don't think the sky is falling. I don't think the hobby is gone. The hobby, I think, is powerful enough. I've heard this story of, cheap PCs will kill the DIY business. The Steam box will kill the DIY business.
Gordon was reporting on that stuff in the 90s.
Right. Yeah, Gordon used to say, is the industry going to change? Yes, it always does. We were talking before, the best motherboard in the world used to be like $199. the best GPU in the world was $499, $399, right, at one point. Maybe that was 12 years ago, 15 years ago, but then it changed. Now GPUs are $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Motherboards can be, you know, a really good motherboard is $300, $400. You can still get a good motherboard for $150.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what you care about on your board, right? Do you need a bunch of USB 3Cs and stuff? So it's a matter of perspective. Is the hobby dying? No. Is it changing? Yes. Do I think memory will be the same price it was a year ago this time when it was, you know, $120 for a 32 gig kit? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think it would happen quickly.
Historically, it's also been very...
Yeah, but this is a record level of volatility. So volatile is normal, like up 10%, down 10%, sure. Up 400% is not typical. However, like we've seen other things scale like that during crypto power supplies and GPUs went nuts. And that type of thing happens periodically. There's a kind of irrationality to it where there's some speculative buying and there's a gold rush thing where everyone's buying shovels and Levi's and you know, that's the type of thing that happens. And we're in that kind of a thing now with AI, right? I mean, I don't think anybody is going to say that they think AI is not a little bit irrational. And but I also don't want to come back and say, oh, it's all a bubble, it's all going to be gone. I don't think it is. Like this is, I think there will be AI usage for the rest of our lives. Do I think that AI should sneaker companies become AI companies? No, I don't. I don't think that's a rational thing.
Right.
I think even the most jaded and cynical like AI employee would look at that and go, okay, even that's kind of, you know,
that's a little much.
Right. You know, like, so I think that the industry is changing. You know, how much they expect to spend on a PC, the time between builds might change. We used to kind of think of people building a new PC every 3 or 4 years. Maybe that goes to 5 or 6. And honestly, with the time between AAA game titles going that way too, and the time between major launches for GPUs and major CPUs going that way too, they kind of line up. Like it makes sense. Like, hey, the pace maybe needs to slow down. So
the timescale stretches. Can you remember a time where there's been volatility like this in any component category, just in general?
GPUs were really tough during crypto.
Yeah.
GPUs were really brutal during crypto. If you go before that, there was a big panic, maybe 10 years before that. There was a huge panic because a lot of non-Japanese capacitors were being used on boards and power supplies and stuff. And so trying to find a power supply or a motherboard that used all Japanese capacitors was almost impossible. And so it became like, well, you got to get rid of your old stuff and you got to go find, I mean, for overclockers at least. No, you're not mainstream.
Well, I remember that though, yeah.
So there's been panic moments here and there. The crypto is the last big one that I can think of, you know, 10 years ago or so. And that's the other thing too. With fuel costs and stuff, logistics are becoming a challenge a lot for people.
How does that factor into decisions companies make when they're bringing stuff in?
So I'll talk to what I know about it specifically. So full disclosure, like I'm not in the logistics meetings right now where I see like the current daily cost of freight. We are a fairly large company that ships a lot of full containers around the world. And so we have constant monitoring of container pricing and logistics pricing. When I was the case product manager, you know, part of the price of what you pay retail for the case, it's not just, oh, CORSAIR pays 50 and then, you know, Newegg adds $20 and then they sell $20 more, so it's $90, I pay 50, you buy it for 90. That's not how it works really. There's, you know, the tooling has to be amortized over the volume of the cases. The storage, it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you divide that by the number of cases you plan on selling over the time you amortize it. So 10,000 cases a year times 3 years is 30,000 cases. If it's $300,000 to tooling, I got to amortize $10 per case. That's made up numbers, but you get the premise. You also have to count in logistics. So if a container, when I'm kicking off the case, if a container costs $5,000 to ship from the factory to like the Los Angeles port, and I can fit 500 cases in it, then it's $10 of shipping per unit, right? If that container count goes from cost goes from 5,000 to 10,000, now it's $20 a case I got to pay for, right? Or if I can shrink that case down a little bit, make it a bit smaller, and go from 500 units a container to 700 or 800 units a container, then my cost goes down too. So you amortize all those costs, and it's part of it's boring accounting math stuff. But yeah, the logistics costs for large items, especially where you're shipping a lot of empty space. Those are really, really important.
And finally, our last meeting of the trip was with Aaron Licht, CEO of Be Quiet, the German case, cooling, and peripheral manufacturer. Aaron has worked with Be Quiet since the start, rejoining to take the role of CEO a few years ago. His focus is on the product side, and he has a PC enthusiast and DIY background. Like CORSAIR's George Makris, Aaron has been working to find positives in the current landscape and brings a unique perspective that we also want to hear, which is how a company might be able to get to the other side of the RAM crisis with a better position than before. However, he's also realistic and recognizes that there are large economic factors at play. For Be Quiet, their biggest opportunity is expanding in the US, as they're already established and the largest in many categories in Germany, so there's a lot of room to grow in the US, where they're less present.
I'm in the industry since I'm 16, and I love the industry. I think it's my home turf. I really enjoy to be in there and also to work in there and Be Quiet. Actually, I was, in my opinion, honored to work for Be Quiet from day one almost, right? So I know every product, I know every employee that is in the company, and for me, when I took over the role, it was always more like a homecoming.
Right,
and we directly started to jump in a strategy workshop, for example, and see what we can do, what we need to tackle to basically elevate the company to the next level. And this is I can proudly say that with thanks to the team, that has been done, right? The company also came out of a good year, so we had a strong entrance into this period. But that's not all, right? That's only how you enter the market.
Right.
What do we do now?
Just broadly, how would you describe kind of the state of the industry right now, at least from your perspective?
Right. Well, thanks first of all for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, I think it's no secret when I tell that the market is right now challenging, right? It's a challenging market for the entire industry, driven by the whole memory problem, availability of the memory, then resulting in obviously GPU availability and prices skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Overall, what we can see is like a 40-60% revenue drop, like overall, not for us, like in the industry. The industry is obviously suffering, which is a sad thing. But because you just said, how do we look at it? How do we handle it? We basically went out of Q1 now in this year with actually some market shares that we could gain. For example, in US we gained market shares. In UK we also gained some market shares. So what I want to say with that, yes, it's a difficult period right now, and you have to fight your way through it. But like every crisis, right, it also offers some kind of a potential that you can either grow, or we can talk about that a bit later if you want to as well. You can take also the time, because things are slowing down sometimes as well in terms of product launches. You can take the time to work on things that you wanted to address anyways, for example, right? But if I may add only one thing, because we always talk about, internally we talk a lot about that, obviously. We always talk about this market situation, which is driven by prices of memory and graphic cards. What I also see is, and definitely it's a smaller part of the issue, but there's more things actually, in my opinion, impacting our customers, our fans of the brand, because you have geopolitical topics right now everywhere. If I look at Germany, there's still a war going on. For some people, that's like 1,000 kilometers away from their door.
Right.
Then we have the whole price of living went up everywhere.
I'm sure gasoline's expensive there too, right? So.
Very good point.
Food has probably gone up too.
Yeah,
so,
it went very high, and Germany, which is still our home market, I would say, we come out of Germany, right? The fuel prices went up intensively, and obviously there's also sometimes a situation that a customer that would potentially buy an AIO might rather fuel up the gas tank. Which is, so there's what I think is just there's so many things right now basically hitting the people, you know what I mean? That they are in a state where they are unsure in what direction to move.
What are your options? You know, as kind of like a CEO or a leader of a company like Be Quiet, when you have a situation like this, like Be Quiet can't do anything to control the food or the gas prices, and you really can't do anything to control the memory prices either.
I wish.
How do you look at it from a business strategy perspective? Like what do you feel like your options are?
We are financially very good set up, so overall the company also came out of a good year. So we had a strong entrance into this period, but that's not all, right? That's only how you enter the market. Right. What do we do now? We look at white spots. Where can we grow? The company is a German-based company. A huge portion of the revenue is done in Germany. So we obviously have a white spot, or had a white spot in US that we are tackling now for the past 2-3 years with a great team in US as well.
Right.
And so this is also the reason why we are in a crisis like that with a good management actually able to grab market shares. And this is then also sometimes maybe a kind of a sad point, right? Because right now companies and competitors are suffering, and I appreciate competition a lot. And if competition has to lay off people, I think that's always a very sad thing, because end of the day, it's, you know, just like us, it's humans that suddenly have a problem and need to solve that.
Right.
On the other side, there's market shares becoming available for me. Plus, even more important, I would say, there's talents becoming available. And you know this industry very well.
Yeah.
There are some talents.
Very small pool of people.
Exactly.
Like, that kind of move between the same companies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's always these growth pillars that you have to look at, right? So one growth pillar is basically growing into new regions. That's the next logical step, and we are tackling that already for a couple of years. So also there, we've done the homework, right? The right team is there. We developed the channels, the partnerships, and now we can start to accelerate. Obviously, this acceleration is a bit slowed down, right? Because of the market is going down, but the moment it picks up again, everything is great and we can accelerate even further. Then there's, of course, another growth pillar, and I'm very sure you're aware of that. We just launched peripherals, keyboards and mice.
Yeah.
So it's always the opportunity to go into new categories to grow as well. And then there's the channels as well.
Are the risks different if you do that under really favorable market conditions versus if you do it now?
Honestly, it depends obviously a bit on the category, right? So if you launch now in a new category that is directly connected to building systems, to building PCs, and I think looking at the whole market developments, you can clearly see that that would have an impact for sure. We went into peripherals. Peripherals is luckily a bit aside of that one. You still can buy a new keyboard because you want the newest technology and the newest switches, or in our case, you want really silent switches, for example.
In a situation like this, how or does that affect product design? You know, because some of the companies, I'll give you some examples. Like we spoke with HYTE, and they seem to be indicating they're interested in maybe moving to a lower MSRP market. As you know, they're like kind of $300 range for a lot of stuff. Cooler Master had kind of the opposite opinion, where they seem to be more interested in going to the higher end. And what Cooler Master felt was that the mid-range is like dead, they just can't sell anything in it. And so it's either compete really cheap or compete at the high end. So, I mean, both of them seem to be changing their strategy for what types of products they make. Anything from Be Quiet's side?
Does it make sense now to move to an area with a product where there's a high volume behind, like which is normally the cheaper side? So if you look like a case which is $60, I would need to look up the data now, but potentially there might be a high volume behind it, which is potentially also system integration driven, because they are always looking for like a base case $40, $50, $60 or something. We, as Be Quiet, we are not interested in that segment. And we are also not interested in going into like this high volume segment, because end of the day, there's a lot of cost around it, A, and B, it doesn't match our brand philosophy.
So explain the high cost. I think will be interesting. I know where you're going with it, but I think it'll be interesting for people, because if you tell me making a cheap product is expensive, it sounds like it doesn't quite make sense, right? So explain, where does the extra cost come in?
It starts basically with the whole supply chain, because higher volume means that you have to also put more work on the supply chain and organize to get all these things by container over. The sales team has to work more on that because they sell more units end of the day, right? Marketing team has to do probably more work, but then also at the very end of this whole process, we have the customer that might have a question about the product, and we want to also deliver top-notch service, and we want to be available for the customer. So if you push out a high volume of a cheap product, and people will ask more questions about it, or maybe even have a problem, you have a high workload there as well. So I think that's always something that you should consider doing that.
Increases back-end costs.
Exactly.
What about like on fine-tuning choices in a product? So for example, SKU complexity. Like if you're gonna have a white version, a black version, maybe you do like 3 other colors or something. My understanding is that gets pretty expensive just because you have different MOQs maybe for all the colors.
100%.
And you have different inventory tracking, logistics, warehousing.
Storage.
Yeah, storage. So does a down situation like now in terms of just people's ability to buy a computer, does that affect how much you can play with SKU complexity?
So very good. I love the question, because when I took over the role, we looked at the product portfolio, and we looked at how many SKUs we have. And I'm a huge fan of efficiency. Efficiency everywhere. Processes, how you work, how you set up your private life, whatever. I love efficiency. And efficiency is also something when you get SKUs in my opinion.
The most German.
It's so German. I'm so sorry. It's very German. Everything needs to be organized. Sorry about that. But talking about efficiency and maybe also talking about what I mentioned before, how we were prepared for, to be honest, for this year. Now we're looking forward to 27, 28 because we will, we're ready for that. The more SKUs you have, the more complicated it is. And it doesn't make sense to have thousands of SKUs. What makes sense, in my opinion, to have the right balance between the products that deliver high volume, so you basically generate revenue, and sometimes have the, how do you say that? The privilege to have SKUs that are more like a service to the end customer.
Right, yeah,
so for example, people wanted to have reverse fans. So these kind of SKUs, I think you should have the privilege to do them.
Right.
Even though maybe you don't make much money with them, but then you have served your fans, right?
Right,
so,
right.
But you should trim that down. It should be kind of efficient and not have thousands of SKUs.
That makes sense. Yeah. Is the worst behind us or is the worst ahead of us, you think? And I know this is difficult because you can't predict the future or anything, but what's your gut feeling, in terms of just, you know what I mean, just the general.
It's a very difficult question. I get it. I think I get the question weekly, I would say. As a CEO of for me, that's a huge company. As a CEO of a huge company, it would be kind of unprofessional to predict anything because I'm missing data. What I know for sure, 100% confident sure, and I will say this in the video, the market will definitely turn around. We just don't know when.
Right. What about pricing? I mean, do you think the pricing will go back to what it was?
No. And I think that's also something that no one should expect, right? If you look at memory prices were on an all-time low. We can all be happy about that it was that way, but I think we will not get there. I think we will get to a price where we will say, okay, that's a reasonable price, we can do this. I would love to see for everyone listening to the video that we have prices like before, but looking at the industry and looking how the industry is managing this, I truly don't expect that the prices of memory will go to an all-time low. It's a seller business. That's a different time. There's so much things around. Like take this Stargate topic. How much? What 40% of the global DRAM that was allocated to this one? It's cancelled.
Yeah.
So of course it was allocated to other projects, but end of the day, also from this side we will see movement, but it's unpredictable. It's not predictable, and this always brings me back to basically the way we started the video. Yes, it is challenging, and also like the tariff discussion we had. Yes, it's a challenge, and we always had these kind of circles, not in this intense race of prices, but we had it for crypto mining. What was it, 2017, 18, when Ethereum suddenly got profitable to mine, and I saw 1060s. They were skyrocketing in terms of price. We had it back in the days 2011, I think, when there was a flood in Thailand, and suddenly all HDDs were not available. So we had these kind of cycles, but not in such a way.
Like, are you able to find positives you want to highlight despite kind of the negatives that we're dealing with? And you've done that kind of throughout here, but any you want to?
We can now squeeze in projects that we wanted to tackle already a bit longer, which means what I also said in between, I am very excited towards 27, very excited. And looking at the roadmap, there will be things in there that I would like to see what you say about it and everybody say about that.
Right.
So that's maybe one positive thing that you can see. And I'm very sure that's a very well-used time. Don't get me wrong on this, right? I think the situation overall is sad. I don't like anything about it.
Yeah.
Like how this is going and that people can't build their dream PC or that people can upgrade right now. I think that's a very sad thing. People out there have a, and I have that as well, by the way, they want to have their own system. They want to upgrade their system when they want to. They want to have it individualized. They want to have it be their system. You know what I mean? So
very helpful. I think good insight also, on the business side.
You're welcome.
Interesting
Thanks.
stuff. Yeah. So thank you for flying all the way out for this.
More than welcome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll jump over to the next one.
Many of the companies we've all come to know in the consumer hardware and enthusiast space won't make it out of the next couple years as the conglomerates consume their supply. Something that feels like it's been carefully architected in joint effort between vulture capitalists and billionaires in collaboration with the government's tariffs chaos to create buying opportunities for mega corporations. Even people we were working with for this video were laid off as we were in the process of filming it. Mega corporations like NVIDIA, AMD, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron that cater to data centers are reaching record high revenues, but not everyone benefits from that. In addition to the well-documented harm to consumers Freedom of choice will also be affected as down-chain companies struggle from customer exodus caused by events happening above them in the chain, mostly by data center impact to consumer prices. AI data centers and their GPU capabilities, often ambiguously described as compute, are consuming the world's supply of semiconductors and causing shortages in memory, storage, and CPUs. But it's not just RAM prices. NVIDIA has lengthened its time horizon for new architecture launches, now averaging closer to 30 months, up from 18 months, then 24 months for the past 20 years. That time horizon stretch is to accommodate data center supply. So without innovation and with higher prices, predictably, consumers don't have the reason or the means to buy computers. Consumer computer case, cooling, motherboard, and even enthusiast RAM stick companies that do most of their business to end users, not data centers, live and die on consumer demand. Even though we're facing record high prices for core components, the impact harms both the consumer and every company that isn't a data center hyperscaler or supplier. Even GSKILL, a memory stick company, isn't benefiting from the memory prices because GSKILL doesn't actually make the memory chips. They buy them from the big three who do. There's a ripple from the tariffs of last year too, although now struck down, including the subsequent global tariff, which triggered a cascade for manufacturers who had tried to get in front of the tariffs, and especially those who tried to hire domestic assembly labor to spin up US-based factories. Demand from AI data centers has severely strained the global supply of memory and storage. The United States government currently has a favorable regulatory environment for AI data center construction. The Trump administration has expedited federal permitting and minimized environmental roadblocks, like for clean air and clean water, to instead prioritize data centers. More than half of the world's new data centers are planned in the US, which doesn't have a power grid to support it, leading to normal people footing the power bill for expansion, while data centers and their chip-making suppliers benefit from multi-billion-dollar tax breaks. Meanwhile, a war in Iran that has included the first drone strikes on data centers, seemingly supported and endorsed by NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang.
I believe that there's a reason we went to war, and I believe at the end of the war, Middle East will be more stable than before. And so if we were there, if we were considering it before, we should absolutely be considering it after. And so I'm 100% in on that.
Is constraining oil availability and spiking freight costs, while also driving up gas prices at the pump, further restricting normal people's finances and making it impossible to afford anything, much less a computer that's already priced out of reach. Big tech is working with the government while the going is good. Many companies, including NVIDIA, Micron, Apple, AMD, Google, Amazon, Samsung, and Microsoft, pander to the federal government in the form of contributions, donations, lobbying and political support, and public praise. This follows tech companies cozying up to the Biden administration for CHIPS Act money previously. NVIDIA is at the heart of the AI data center ecosystem. Within the last 5 years, NVIDIA's gaming division has been outclassed by its data center business, and dozens of other companies built their businesses on the back of the gaming business, most of which don't have a backup plan for data centers. In NVIDIA's fiscal year 2021, its gaming and data centers businesses brought in more than $9.8 billion and $6.8 billion in revenue, respectively. By fiscal year 2026, NVIDIA's data center business shot past gaming, surpassing $193 billion in revenue, compared to $22 billion in gaming. In just 5 years, NVIDIA's data center revenue went from lagging behind its gaming business to exceeding it by more than 8 times. NVIDIA's competitor, run by NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang's cousin, Lisa Su, AMD, is also profiting from the data center craze. In the first quarter of 2026, AMD made $5.8 billion from its data center business, compared to $720 million from gaming. AMD's data center business grew by 57% year over year, and on the other hand, AMD expects its gaming revenue to decline by 20% in the second half of 2026 due to memory shortages that it itself is partially causing. The big three memory manufacturers, Micron, Samsung, and SK Hynix, are also part of the AI money windfall. Micron made nearly $24 billion in revenue last quarter, up 196% year over year. Alongside its public abandonment of consumer-facing memory sticks, all 4 of Micron's business units grew their revenue by more than 160% year over year in the last quarter, even though Micron expects PC and smartphone shipments to decline due to DRAM and NAND supply constraints. Similarly, South Korea's key memory manufacturers, Samsung and SK Hynix, collectively 2/3 of the big three, are generating record high revenues and profits. Samsung said that the, quote, ongoing AI boom is expected to continue driving favorable market conditions across the industry, end quote, and has warned of memory shortages through 2027. SK Hynix expects the, quote, favorable pricing environment, end quote, for memory to continue while supply is tight. All three companies have been busted for price-fixing collusion in the past, which we covered in our DRAM cartel documentary. It's clear at this point that this is going to be an ongoing coverage chapter of what we do here at Gamers Nexus and on our GNCA channel. We have more travel planned, including to data centers around the United States to close out a prior content piece. But because our work has gotten a lot more complicated, a lot more detailed, and has involved a lot more on-the-ground travel and investigation, we need your help to pull it off. Please head over to store.gamersnexus.net to support our efforts here directly. Even if none of the items we have interest you, there's a donate button in the bottom left of the store. That gives us the greatest cut out of all the options. Of course, YouTube Super Chats are an option, and so is Patreon. But we prefer if you get something for your money, so if you want to grab an item on the store, that'll also help keep our warehouse team busy. Our soldering and project mats have been highly popular. We also have our retro IO themed coaster packs and plenty more on the store. Head over to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly. Subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus, and we'll see you all next time.